Douluo, after listening to the advice, I became a god. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 426 Jugu fights against the porcupine snake spear. Yun Feng was also helpless. He looked at Qian Renxu and said, "You heard it too. He has his own mission and commitment. Even if we have different positions, I can't do it. What if Yanzi gets angry? After all, I am so strong. It would be bad if I accidentally hurt her grandfather." Hearing Yun Feng's words, Jugu Bo and Qian Renxu both glared at Yun Feng fiercely. This man really deserves a beating, but what he said is true. It is not suitable for him to take action in this situation. Well, since Senior Jugu is unwilling to give way, let me do it. After saying this, Qian Renxu called out directly, "Elder Thorn Porpoise, Elder Snake Spear, you have something to do. Remember not to hurt Senior Jugu too badly, so as not to make some people unhappy or even get beaten." After Qian Renxu said this, two old men suddenly appeared in front of Qian Renxu. "Yes, young master." The two old men flashed out at the same time and pounced on Jugu Bo as fast as lightning. In the air, gorgeous colorful lights mixed with unparalleled surging soul power suddenly burst out. 9 brilliant soul rings appeared on them. When Jugu Bo saw the two old men, he immediately understood that they must be from the Elder Hall of the Spirit Hall. Although it was not the first time he faced the attack of a titled Luo level strongman, when the two titled Luos released their pressure at the same time, Jugu Bo still felt a breathless feeling. The two titled Luos were at least over 80 years old, and they were both strong men that Jugu Bo had never seen before. The old man on the left was more than 2 meters tall, and his slender figure was as straight and sharp as a javelin. After the release of the spirit, his body did not change in any special way, but a snake spear appeared in his hand. It was about 2 feet long, with a curved spear head and a forked sharp point like a snake's tongue. The snake spear was purple all over, with 2 yellow, 3 purple, and 4 black. The terrifying 9 soul rings surrounded this snake spear. This titled Buo gave people the feeling that it was only the snake spear that flew out, and no person. It was no longer a simple combination of man and spear, but a real fusion. There was no need to do anything deliberately. The snake spear and the body had already reached a terrifying degree of fit. The weapon spirit master titled Buo was often more terrifying than the beast spirit master titled Buo. Didn't the Hashin sect become the world's #1 sect by relying on the weapon spirit Hashin hammer? The direction of this titled Buo's pounce was directly towards Jugu Bo. The snake spear did not extend, but was dragged diagonally to the side, leaving a long string of afterimages behind. It gave people a sense of illusion. The other titled Buo was of medium build. He was moderately fat and thin, and there was nothing special about him. But when the spirit was released, his body swelled up like a balloon. Countless purple spikes emerged from his body and spread all over his body. The spirit ring configuration was exactly the same as the previous titled Buo, but he looked much more ferocious at this time. Even his hands had turned into purple spikes, and his whole body was shrouded in this special purple color. No one would look down on him or despise him because of his ugliness. After the release of the martial spirit, the greater the change in the body, the higher the degree of fit between the body and the martial spirit, that is, the higher the martial spirit level. Thorny Porpoise, the martial spirit of this soul master, turned out to be an extremely rare thorny porpoise, and he had cultivated it to the level of titled Buo. The thorny porpoise itself is a creature in the sea. When it encounters danger, it will puff up its body and use the spikes on its body to protect itself. The several abilities possessed by the thorny porpoise soul master include highly toxic, hard body, and external release of poisonous thorns. At that time, the master described it as a thorny porpoise, an extremely dangerous martial spirit, and you must be careful when you encounter it. Through a simple judgment of mental power, Jugu Bo has already felt that the martial spirit levels of these two titled Buo are higher than his. The real combat strength is naturally higher than him. Jugu Bo also moved, and with a low shout, he released his martial spirit. Green scales covered his entire body, His entire body, including his hair, turned into a layer of green. The scales covering every part of his body also showed his tidal Buo level strength. Puff! A layer of green gas suddenly gushed out from Jugubo's body, bypassing Yun Feng as if it had eyes, and erupted in all directions at the same time. Jugubo, as a tidal Buo, did not recognize the two titled Luos in front of him. Testing with poison is Jugubo's usual fighting method. The sudden release of poison was naturally not to hurt the two titled Luos in front of him. It was just to test their ability to resist poison and to slaughter the weak soul masters around them. The poison of the poisoned Buo was not something that those weak soul masters could resist. However, a strange scene appeared. The snake spear in the hand of the snake spear Buo who had pounced on Jugubo suddenly propped up on the ground. The body that was originally lunging forward suddenly changed direction and flew out diagonally. When the snake spear was raised again, it had returned to the back of the thorny porpoised Buo. The other thorny porpoised Buo's swollen body spikes propped up on the ground. Crossing with the snake spear Buo, he opened his mouth and sucked, and his third soul ring flashed. The green poisonous mist released by Jugubo was swallowed into his stomach like a whale sucking water without a drop left. When the terrifying poison entered his body, the thorny porpoised Buo's whole body was covered with a layer of green light, and the dense purple spikes on his body were rendered with a thick layer of green. He actually forced the poison released by Jugubo into his own spikes. When Jugubo saw this scene, he was stunned for a moment. Is there such a warrior? Seeing Jugubo's look, Kion Renxu laughed out loud and said to Jugubo, "Poisoned Buo, don't try to resist. These two elders have come to the Heavened Empire to deal with you since our spirit hall decided to come, so your poison is useless in front of them." Jugubo's face changed slightly. While Zhu King was talking, the snake spear Buo had already arrived in front of his enemy. The snake spear was lightly extended, and 9 lights and shadows appeared, covering Jugubo. The black light was like a poisonous dragon. Jugubo couldn't dodge it. There was really no way. Facing the titled Buo who restrained himself, he directly opened his spirit body. The huge snake body directly filled the world, and Jugubo's 7th spirit ring bloomed with its own light. A piercing long roar came from his mouth, and the emerald green light burst out from his body. The 7th spirit ring on his body was shining, and his tall and thin body continued to expand in the green light and soared up. The emerald green scales were also diamond-shaped, and looked like inlaid pieces of jade. The human body had disappeared, and Jugubo transformed into a huge emerald green snake, 30 meters long and as thick as a water tank. Most of the snake's body stood upright, with a thick green mist. The opponent attacked at 9 points, and Jugubo blocked them all, using the huge snake's body and all its momentum to concentrate on its mouth, and rushed straight to Snake Spear Buo to bite. Chapter 427, Without strength and power, everything is useless. But Snake Spear Buo was so agile that he dodged the attack with a flash. Then he teamed up with Thorny Porpoise Buo to fight Jugubo. However, Jugubo had been looking for trouble with his old friend for many years, so his combat experience was naturally much higher than the two in front of him. In the battle, Snake Spear Buo was not careful and was successfully attacked by Jugubo. With a muffled groan, Snake Spear Buo flew backwards, and the snake spear in his hand almost slipped out of his hand in the violent trembling. The whole person's upper body completely leaned back, and a mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth. The body retreated to Kion Renxu's side before he could hold it steady, but his face turned pale, and he suffered a lot of injuries from Jugubo's sneak attack. Kion Renxu's face suddenly became ugly, and her brows were slightly frowned. 2 against 1, almost killed. She didn't know what to say, in front of her sweetheart. This subordinate was really. Snake Spear Buo's pale face also showed a layer of green air, and everyone who knew him knew it. This title Buo was really angry. But at this time, Jugubo was confronting the thorny porpoise Buo. No one acted rashly. Jugubo's poisonous gas was swallowed by the thorny porpoise Buo. He immediately understood that the title Buo in front of him was found by Zhu King specifically to deal with him. Obviously, the opponent has the ability to swallow toxins and convert them into his own attack power. In other words, the more poisonous gas or venom Jugubo releases, the stronger the poison attached to the spikes on the opponent's body will become. Therefore, Jugubo did not act rashly, and the thorny porpoise Buo also completely locked his energy on him instead of rushing to attack, because he knew very well that in a confrontation at the title Buo level, even if he was stronger than Jugubo, he would never win completely. The title Buo's dying counterattack was too terrible. Jugubo did not move because he was thinking about countermeasures. He knew very well that among the titled Luos, except for the poison he was good at, everything else was the weakest. It was impossible to win the thorny porpoise Buo in front of him by direct confrontation. How should he deal with him? The surprise attack just now also made the opponent prepared. After a stalemate, Jugubo also realized that he could not wait any longer. If he waited until Snake Spear Buo recovered, he would be the one who would suffer. So the huge body turned halfway, and the giant snake tail pulled it from the other direction of the thorny porpoise Soul Master. The thorny porpoise Soul Master, who had become extremely ugly due to the possession of the martial spirit, screamed suddenly, facing Jugubo's attack. His reaction was still very fast. The spherical body suddenly shrank, and then the fifth soul ring on his body burst into purple light. The shrunken body expanded again like lightning. Nearly 100 poisonous thorns attached to his body sprayed out at the same time, shooting straight towards Jugubo. These separated poisonous thorns were not only attached with the green phosphorus Snake King poison that Jugubo had sprayed before, but also with all the poisons of the thorny porpoise Soul Master himself. The strong spray force also reached a terrifying level. Taking this opportunity, he also retreated quickly. He wanted to reunite with the Snake Spear Soul Master who stood up again. Jugubo's huge body obviously couldn't dodge, and he didn't plan to dodge. The huge snake tail swept in front of him, bringing up a green whirlwind, blocking him. The thorny porpoise Soul Master showed a sneer on his face while retreating. Is my sting so easy to dodge? More than half of the dense stings in the air suddenly exploded, turning into large pieces of debris and splashing, but the coverage area was controlled very cleverly, just in time not to contaminate Qian Renxu, Yun Feng and others on the periphery. Jugubo had no way to face this kind of explosion, and could only rely on his defensive soul skills and the strength of his martial soul body to block the sting attack. Although the sting of the thorny porpoise Buo was strong, it could only slow down Jugubo, who had a strong scale to protect his body after using his martial soul body and was good at using poison. At this time, the green phosphorus Snake King, who Jugubo transformed into, had also freed his hands. Although he was delayed, the distance was close after all, and his body was huge. It must be faster than the speed of Snake Spear Buo entering the battlefield. At the same time, the Snake Spear Buo on the other side also responded accordingly, and was injured by Jugubo's shame of title. It was a great shame for him. The snake spear flew out of his hand and turned into a lightning under the effect of the fifth soul ring and flew straight to Jugubo. Snake Spear Buo calculated the position very accurately. If Jugubo attacked the thorny porpoise Buo, then his snake spear would definitely penetrate Jugubo's body. Although he was not a pure attacking soul master, as a titled Buo, if his desperate snake spear really fell on Jugubo, Jugubo would definitely be seriously injured. Jugubo actually couldn't hide now. The size of the martial soul's true body was so large that he took a last look at the thorny porpoise Buo he was going to attack, and still smiled. The huge snake fangs directly pierced the thorny porpoise Buo's suddenly swollen body. There was a light sound of puff, as if something had burst. The extremely inflated body of the thorny porpoise Buo was like a punctured balloon. With a puff, a huge sphere with a diameter of 10 meters flew out, drawing several irregular arcs in the air and pouring towards the far end. The snake spear of the Snake Spear Buo also directly penetrated Jugubo's body, with unparalleled power, leaving a huge flesh and blood hole on Jugubo's snake body. Jugubo fought two titled Luos alone, and he had tried his best, but the result was not something he could change. He just hoped that Zhu Xing could complete what he wanted to do. Be loyal to the person who entrusted you. The grace of saving your life was offset. The thorny porpoise Buo returned to the state before using the martial soul true body and fell beside Qian Renxu. The snake spear Buo also retracted his snake spear in the air, bounced back, and landed on the other side of Qian Renxu. Looking at Zhuge Bo lying on the ground, Qian Renxu also clapped her hands and praised, "You are really amazing. You can resist for so long, but everything you have done is in vain. I don't need to hide it from you. The situation in Tandu City is completely under my control. This time, I transferred up to 3,000 soul masters from the Spirit Hall to infiltrate Tandu City. The royal family has a total of 4,000 soul masters, 1,000 of whom are secretly receiving training, and the other 2,000 are stationed in the palace. As the prince, they will naturally obey my orders. In other words, I have a total of 4,000 soul masters in my hands. Among the 3,000 soul masters I transferred from the Spirit Hall this time, there are 4 elders of the Spirit Hall. In addition to these 2, there are 2 who are leading the 2,000 soul masters in the palace to be on standby at any time. When Qian Renxu said this, Yun Feng didn't know how to comfort this cheap grandfather. It was really miserable. Even if Prince Xuxing really got the so-called imperial edict, what would happen? Let alone the army, even the ministers in the court would not recognize him. After all, Prince Xuxing had made a name for himself in order to save his life, so those ministers would not choose him. To be honest, Yun Feng still admired Prince Xuxing, but without strength and power, everything was useless. Chapter 428 Good luck to you. At this point, Qian Renxu chuckled. Although my original plan would have to be delayed for a few months before it was ready to take action, now because of Yun Feng, it has been advanced a little. But how can you two ruin so many years of planning? In this palace, there are 1,000 soul masters and my personal guards under my personal command to control the situation. Once my father dies of poison, I can naturally inherit the throne. At that time, not only will the 1,000 soul masters who have been secretly trained be under my command, but the entire army in Tandu City will also be under my command. I will be the new emperor of the Tandu Empire. Years of accumulation are definitely not something you can destroy. Your persistence will only make your precious life die in vain, so you might as well go in and persuade my cheap uncle. After hearing Zhu King's words, Zhuge Bo couldn't help but feel cold in his heart, and he immediately understood the plan of the Spirit Hall. Although he still didn't understand why Zhu King could have such a high status and unreserved support in the Spirit Hall, but it is conceivable that if the Spirit Hall supports him with the entire Spirit Hall as a backing, then the Xingluo Empire will never be able to compete with the Tandu Empire. At that time, the Spirit Hall will unify the continent through the Tandu Empire. For ordinary civilians, this is obviously the most acceptable method. Since the Spirit Hall destroyed the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex family at great expense and severely damaged the 7 Treasures Glazed sect, the entire huge plan has been in operation. The destruction of the 2 major sects not only made the Spirit Hall's monopoly in the Soul Master world more obvious, but also cleared the obstacles in the Tandu Empire. The closure of the Hashin sect is no longer a problem. Even if the sect is reopened, there are only direct disciples, and the number is insufficient. After the destruction of the 7 Treasures Glazed sect and the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex family, in the entire Tandu Empire, except for the Spirit Hall, the strongest soul master is the Tandu Empire royal family. In this way, first of all, there will be no obstacles on the Tandu Empire side. Thinking of this, Zhuge Bo was like a revelation. Everything in front of him became clear, and he secretly guessed that if Zhu King successfully obtained the throne of the Tandu Empire, then, the next thing that the Spirit Hall has to do is to assist Zhu King in unifying the entire Tandu Empire and incorporate those principalities and kingdoms. After unifying the entire empire, with the support of the Spirit Hall, it only takes an unfounded reason to launch a war of unification against the Xingluo Empire. At that time, it can be said that the Tandu Empire unified the continent, and it can also be said that the Xingluo Empire unified the continent. It is indeed a good plan. I am really old. Looking at Zhu King and Yun Feng in front of him, I don't know what expression to use to face the two of them. If it is really possible to unify the continent, it is a good thing. I lose. You go in. Seeing this, Yun Feng took out a fairy bin from the ring and came to Zhuge Bo, who had turned back into a human form. Looking at the big hole in Zhuge Bo's chest, he smiled and said, "What are you trying to do? If you can't beat him, you can't beat him. Just try your best. If I wasn't by your side, you would be dead now. What would Yanzi do then? She has no father or mother, and now even no grandfather. Wouldn't she blame me to death? Hearing Yunfeng's chattering, Zhuge smiled. Yes, what was he doing for? He himself didn't understand, but now he was very relaxed. The shackles on his body were completely untied. Seeing this, Yunfeng didn't hesitate and directly placed the fairy bins into Zhuge mouth. The huge life energy immediately swept Zhuge whole body. At a speed visible to the naked eye, granulations quickly grew on the wound and continued to heal. Feeling the vitality coming from his body, Zhuge was directly shocked. What did he eat just now? He could actually do this. Thinking back to when Yunfeng gave him the fairy grass, Zhuge was also so shocked. So soon Zhuge figured it out. Yunfeng couldn't use common sense to save him, so no matter what outrageous operation he made, Zhuge could accept it. Soon the injury was completely healed. Yunfeng was not stingy, and took out a few more from the ring and gave them to Thorny Porpoise Duo, Snake Spear Duo, and Qian Renxu. Although there was no big enemy, one more trump card to save his life was one more. Thorny Porpoise Duo and Snake Spear Duo did not expect that they could get such a powerful trump card to save their lives, and their favorability towards Yunfeng increased greatly. After all, at this level, it is extremely rare for them to be able to help them, and since Yunfeng could give it to them without hesitation, it's just too good. Qian Renxu was not surprised. She had known Yunfeng's character for a long time, but seeing Yunfeng giving it like this, she was actually a little worried. Did Yunfeng have it himself? After all, this thing is not an ordinary thing at first glance, so it must be hard to get. Yunfeng seemed to see Qian Renxu's worry, so he said directly, I still have a lot of these things. When you run out of them, just come to me for more. But I hope that you will never need this thing. Yunfeng's words were full of sincerity, and Qian Renxu couldn't help but stare at Yunfeng in amazement. Zhuge frowned and coughed softly beside Yunfeng. You two are both men. The four people who heard this were stunned and laughed out loud. Yes, Zhuge didn't know Qian Renxu's true identity. No wonder there was such a misunderstanding. Zhuge was a little confused. Seeing that everyone was laughing, there was nothing wrong with what he said, but now was not a good time to explain. Yunfeng looked at Zhuge and said directly, Grandpa Zhuge, next, are you going in with us, or? After hearing Yunfeng's words, Zhuge was silent for a while. In the end, he shook his head and sighed. Forget it, I won't go in, lest I can't help myself. After you're done, bring Yanzi to me when you have a chance, and I'll see if I can help you. Knowing what Zhuge meant, Yunfeng nodded and gave the simplest response. Okay. Zhuge looked at the door behind him, and a trace of emotion and relief flashed in his eyes. Good luck. Then he left the palace directly. After seeing the last roadblocker leave, Yunfeng and Qian Renxu looked at each other and then stepped into the bedroom together. Prince Xuxin felt the footsteps behind him, and the whole person suddenly collapsed to the ground, with a trace of despair flashing in his eyes. There is really no way. Time is too rushed. But he also understands that if he is given more time, his chances of turning the tables are very small. Being able to lurk for so long, his nephew Zuking may have infiltrated the entire Tandu Palace. Otherwise, it would be unfair to her usual performance outside. No matter what she does, she is at ease. If only it was really his nephew, then he could be a free and easy prince without worrying about these things. After sensing the approaching footsteps, Prince Xuxing's face flashed with a final hint of determination, and he took out the blade from the soul guide and thrust it straight into his heart. Then he turned around and looked at the four people who came in. His face was full of sadness. He looked at the huge bedroom, and finally lay down on the ground helplessly. Chapter 429 ascends the throne to become emperor. A blood red was presented to this grand opening. The Snowy Night Emperor, who was lying on the bed, was also dead at this moment. There were still dark blue handprints on his neck, but he had a smile on his face. Obviously, he laughed when he died. Seeing this scene, Yunfeng and Qian Renxu were actually very silent. No one is a saint who can be completely emotionless, especially the death of this emperor, which has something to do with them. Yunfeng walked forward, sniffed his breath slightly, hesitated for a moment, and finally put the fairy bins in his hand back into the ring. There is no way to save such a dead person. There is no need to do this. Even the fairy bins can't save him. Yun Feng was a little upset, but he still gently smoothed the emperor's eyes with his hand. What should we do now? Qian Renxu looked at Yun Feng and said slowly. After Yun Feng was silent for a while, a gleam of light finally appeared in his eyes. Let's follow the original plan. You draft a fake imperial edict, and I'll go pick up Zook. As for your identity, Qian Renxu looked at Yun Feng and said directly, fake your death and get away. Don't let Zook know that I'm fake. I'm afraid she can't bear it. Yun Feng thought about it and it was true. Yun Feng didn't want to lose anyone. Zook would inevitably think too much after knowing the truth. Yun Feng was originally a villain. What would happen if he did it again now, especially now that Zook has a child? So no one wants to be the bad guy. The rest will be left to time. Okay, then you get ready. After saying that, Yun Feng directly summoned the Moon Shadow Sword and disappeared on the spot. Looking at the direction where Yun Feng left, Qian Renxu was silent for a while, and then directly said to the thorny porpoise Duo and the snake-speared Duo, you two will do what we just said, as quickly as possible. At the same time, go to the prison to find a substitute and let him die in place of Zook King. Got it. Thorny porpoise Duo and the snake-speared Duo nodded in unison, and then disappeared here. Qian Renxu looked at the body on the bed, bowed deeply, and then returned to her original appearance. She took out the clothes that Zook King usually wore from the ring and placed them aside. She returned to her original appearance, summoned her martial spirit, spread her wings, looked at the direction of the martial spirit hall, and flew away directly. Qian Renxu's speed was extremely fast. No one noticed what was happening here. Half a month later, the Tandu Empire seemed to have come out of its sadness, and now there was something more important. That was that the Tandu Empire was about to welcome a new master. It was not Avalanche, nor was it Zook King, because both princes were dead, died at the hands of his own uncle, Prince Xuxing, and Emperor Zuyi also died at the hands of his younger brother. His Highness Zook King, who went with Yun Feng, was attacked by Prince Xuxing and died there on the spot. In the end, he was directly defeated by the angry imperial son-in-law Yun Feng. Prince Xuxing, who couldn't bear to be a prisoner, chose to hang himself. At this point, the only direct bloodline in the empire was Zook and a group of princesses, but the most talented and capable among them was only Princess Zook. However, when sorting out Emperor Zuyi, the imperial edict and jade seal hidden by Emperor Zuyi were found. It was written on it that there were all the previous things, and some of Emperor Zuyi's guesses about the future. If all the direct princes really died, then the throne would be handed over to the son-in-law. However, the first boy born by Princess Zook would be the new emperor in the future. The ministers had nothing to say about this, and the jade seal on it was real, and the only place where the jade seal existed was Emperor Zuyi. The most important thing was that these ministers also hoped that Yun Feng would be the emperor. After all, Yun Feng's strength was obvious to all, and the influence of Yun Feng's halo over the years had made these ministers completely surrender. So today, after 15 days of mourning, the coronation ceremony began. The country cannot be without a monarch for a day. Yun Feng looked at the women accompanying him, and a smile flashed in his eyes. Especially seeing that some of them were pregnant, the smile became more and more intense. Does he have a home in this world? He should have. After all, now he even has children, and he is just waiting for them to be born. Zhu Xiaoyun came to Yun Feng's side and sorted Yun Feng's clothes with meow meow. Then he smoothed the last wrinkles for Yun Feng, and then nodded with satisfaction. The rest of the people almost all stood by Zook's side, comforting this lovely sister. Although Zook has not completely come out, she is much better than at the beginning. It is worth mentioning that Tang Yue also came. Gu Duoina, Binyao and Kai Ling also came with them. They also want to see the ceremony of becoming an emperor in the human world. The most important thing is that they also want to leave a child, because they don't know what will happen in the future. After looking around, Yun Feng heard the sound of a huge bell under the gaze of the women. The time has come. The bell awakened Yun Feng's thoughts. He heard the sound of fine footsteps coming from outside the palace, and then a palace maid soft report. Your Majesty, the time has come. Yun Feng replied, I know. Then, under the gaze of the women, he took a breath and slowly stood up. His clear black eyes were already filled with determination and longing. After Zhu Zuqing and Zhu Xian opened the door, Yun Feng walked out of the palace. At this time, the bells and drums had already sounded 3 times. This meant that the officials from the Ministry of Rites had finished the sacrifices at the Temple of Heaven, the Temple of Agriculture, and the Imperial Ancestral Temple. The grand and solemn coronation ceremony was about to begin. The white cloth in the palace had been replaced with red cloth, and the lights and decorations were completely different from the previous successions. The whole ceremony was in a relaxed and cheerful atmosphere. This was something Yun Feng had specifically ordered. He didn't want Zook to be too uncomfortable. The ritual music floated in the air, and as Yun Feng got out of the sedan chair and walked, he slowly climbed the stairs of the Tea Hall. The ministers were already waiting in the hall. Seeing the new emperor in a golden robe with 9 5-clawed golden dragons embroidered on it, he looked noble and majestic. Yun Feng's steps were very firm. The gazes and gazes of tens of thousands of people did not affect Yun Feng in the slightest. With his calm temperament, it was hard to tell that he was just a young man in his 20s, praying to the heavens and communicating with the heavens and the earth. Yun Feng did everything in an extremely standard manner. The skills he had learned in Yuxuan before also added extra points at this moment. The officials' uneasy hearts gradually settled down. The calm performance of the new emperor made them full of confidence in the future. The golden dragon robe set off his slender body and made him look taller. His dignity made people dare not approach him easily. The giant dragon on his chest was looking down at the world with its fangs and claws. With Yun Feng step by step, he finally stopped at the throne that symbolized the peak of power of the country. After hesitating for a moment, Yun Feng turned around and sat down directly. Under the gaze of the ministers, Yun Feng spoke, My ascension to the throne today is an honor to the Tandu and a blessing to the people. After I ascend the throne, I will practice benevolence and filial piety, and govern the country with courtesy and filial piety. All slave trade is prohibited in the domestic territory. If anyone violates this rule, his entire clan will be executed depending on the circumstances. Chapter 430 The Superior. Then, under the reading of the palace maid, the contents of the imperial edict quickly reached the ears of the ministers. Miao Miao, who was watching the ceremony outside, burst into tears after hearing Yun Feng's words. A few years have passed, and Yun Feng still hasn't forgotten what he promised her. Even though she was just a little maid, he still treated her like this. What an honor! In the following time, Yun Feng also held a court meeting with the ministers to discuss matters big and small. After all, Yun Feng was the first time to be an emperor, and he was also a latecomer. He didn't really understand many things, but the ministers could understand. Yun Feng didn't worry that these people would do him a favor. Even if they were really bad guys, Yun Feng was not afraid, because at the end of the court meeting, Yun Feng showed his strength and brought Gu Dubuina and others to help. Seeing that there were so many masters around the new emperor, the minister's uneasiness about the Wuhan Hall also became stable. Being able to win over so many titled Buo proved that the new emperor was not a mediocre person, and he was very charismatic. I just don't quite understand why all these titled Buo are women, but they didn't think so much. As long as they can bring strength to the empire, it's a good thing. Yun Feng had discussed with some ministers before taking office. He immediately exempted the empire from taxes for 1 year. He has been busy for a long time, and this coronation is finally over. After returning to his own palace, Yun Feng actually still felt very unreal. Although he wanted to be an emperor, when he really became the emperor, he found that things were not as easy as he imagined. Although this world is different from the ancient times of his previous life, but there are still some things in common. However, this world has extraordinary powers, so there is no need to worry about natural disasters. Even if they happen, they can be overcome artificially. After all, the soul masters raised by the empire and the soul masters of the spirit hall are not vegetarians. Just when Yun Feng was thinking about things, 3 more people appeared in the palace. They were Huliina, Qian Renxu and Bibi Dong. Yun Feng was very surprised to see the 3 people in front of him. When did you come? Bibi Dong smiled and said, after Xue came back, she told me about this matter. We naturally came when we learned that you were going to ascend the throne, otherwise, we would not be able to witness your majestic posture." Qian Renxu and Huliina also blushed and nodded. After seeing this scene, Yun Feng felt that all the fatigue in his body today disappeared. "Thank you." Huliina looked at Yun Feng and thanked him, and was extremely dissatisfied. "Do we still need to say this word between us?" Seeing Huliina's mouth pouting very high, Yun Feng couldn't control himself and kissed her red lips directly. "Then I won't say thank you, just prove it with action." Then he hugged Huliina with a smirk on his face and gave her a deep kiss. After kissing her until she was a little breathless, he let her go. At this moment, Huliina was so embarrassed that she didn't know what to do under the gaze of her teacher and Qian Renxu. She didn't know what to do at all, but she got the answer soon. In front of Qian Renxu and Bibi Dong, Yun Feng started his own operation. Huliina's love for Yun Feng is no less than anyone else. On the contrary, during the years in the City of Slaughter, she always relied on Yun Feng to get by. So for Huliina, Yun Feng is almost everything to her now. After feeling Yun Feng's actions, Huliina also let go completely. Bibi Dong and Qian Renxu, who were still laughing before, looked at each other, snorted softly, and left the room. They are all proud women, and naturally don't want to give it so hastily for the first time. After the two of them left, they went directly to the side hall. After seeing a bunch of people in the side hall, Bibi Dong and Qian Renxu were actually a little at a loss. It was still Biji who noticed them and took them both over. The moment Qian Renxu saw Zook, the guilt in her heart suddenly came up. It's really uncomfortable, but this is also a must-go. Bibi Dong and Guiduina looked at each other. They both felt an extremely strong aura of a superior from each other, but Bibi Dong racked her brains and couldn't figure out which family this person was from. But judging from his aura, he would definitely not be weaker than her. Sometimes Bibi Dong even doubted whether Yun Feng didn't need the spirit hall to rule the world. It seems that the number of titled Buo around him is only slightly less than that of the spirit hall now, but which of the titled Buo around him is not strong, and each of them is an extreme Buo, and it's far more than that. Even the auras of Binyao and Chiling behind Guiduina, whom Bibi Dong looked at, were much stronger than hers. Bibi Dong had no idea how many secrets Yun Feng had hidden from her. It was really too much. She even told him that kind of thing. "I wrote the letter for so long before, and I have been paying attention to Yun Feng since he was a child. Where did he get so many helpers now?" If she had this fighting power, how could she look at the face of the worship hall? Guiduina's thoughts were very simple. The moment she saw Bibi Dong, she was sure that she was being watched by the gods, because she was also a god. In fact, Yun Feng could also be regarded as being watched by the gods, because he had Guiduina's reverse scales. So Bibi Dong also felt almost the same breath from Guiduina as Yun Feng, but there were only some subtle differences. After the two women looked at each other, they began to communicate. In fact, Guiduina was not used to such occasions, but for the sake of her own race and the future of soul beasts, Guiduina still forced herself to stay here. The women knew that there was a woman on Yun Feng's side, so they were not in a hurry to go. After all, if they went now, they might scare the new sisters. So they planned to make a surprise attack after this matter was over. They would not let go of such a day. After the conversation, Guiduina also knew Bibi Dong's identity, and began to talk to Bibi Dong about some of her views on the overall situation. After all, Guiduina is Guiduina. Even though she has been sleeping for these years, the knowledge of the dragon god in her mind also makes her very knowledgeable. When chatting with Bibi Dong, they confirmed each other's violation of the law. It was very pleasant. Chapter 431. Have you received the inheritance from the sea god? It was late at night. The candlelight flickered and swayed. On the morning of the third day, Yun Feng finally woke up. This is the good thing about this world. The emperor does not need to go to court every day. After all, this is a world led by force. The people below dare not engage in any conspiracy, unless your soul power and power are higher than the emperor. Otherwise, they dare not rebel. But how easy is this? Not to mention that the spirit hall will not agree. The power around Yun Feng is also obvious to all. What's more, They all recognize Yun Feng as the emperor from the bottom of their hearts. It is worth mentioning that on the second day after Yun Feng ascended the throne, Tang Yue came to Yun Feng's bedroom. Tang Yue naturally liked Yun Feng. Among the people who have been in Yun Feng's strategy, she has been there for a long time. In front of a plug-in, even stones will be warmed up. So under Yun Feng's invitation, he half-heartedly agreed. After getting up, Yun Feng came to the treasury of the palace under the leadership of Zook. Yun Feng took out the jade seal according to Zook's instructions, and then used his soul power to drive the jade seal in front of the door. He opened the door of the treasure house directly. Zook walked inside, opened a secret compartment, and came to Yun Feng with a brocade plate covered with a layer of red cloth. There was something bulging underneath, and I don't know what it is. Zook said with a hint of nostalgia, "Husband, open it and take a look. This will be a symbol of your identity in the future." Yun Feng lifted the red cloth with some doubts, and suddenly, the whole bedroom was shrouded in a strong treasure light. It was an extremely strange thing, with a crystal clear blue color and a three-dimensional triangle shape. The whole thing seemed to be carved from sapphire and was only the size of a palm. The crystal blue light was filled with treasure light, and strange energy fluctuations continued to emanate from it. On this blue triangle, there are rippling lines like water waves. These lines do not seem to be carved, but more like they are alive. Circles of blue light flicker, reflecting the faint light of the palace. Yun Feng naturally knew what it was, but he still turned his head to Zook, looking at Zook as if asking what it was. Zook smiled slightly, and there was a bitter feeling in her heart. This thing is called the Vast Sea Universe Cover. In a sense, it can be regarded as a soul guide. It will be your symbol in the future. This thing has many wonderful uses. When you go back, you just need to inject your soul power into it, and you will naturally understand it. It should be able to provide some help to your husband. After Yun Feng used his mental power to scan around, he found that he could not see through this thing to see the situation inside. The blue triangle Vast Sea Universe cover that even he could not see through made him very interested. Although he knew that this was a key item left by the sea god, after returning to the room, he immediately took out the Vast Sea Universe cover and prepared to see what it was. He wanted to study whether this thing had any other uses. Holding the Vast Sea Universe cover in both hands, Yun Feng couldn't help but wonder, what is the principle of this thing? He didn't rush to output soul power into it, but carefully looked at this special object with light and shadow flowing, and carefully released his mental power to explore it. However, Yun Feng's mental power was injected into the Vast Sea Universe cover, and suddenly, he felt an indescribable force suddenly bounced his mental power back. The whole person fell backwards holding the Vast Sea Universe cover. His mind was blank, and at the last moment of consciousness, he just felt something hit his head. If Yun Feng's mental power is strong now, then the mental attribute energy fluctuations that his mental power touches in the Vast Sea Universe cover are vast. That is not a confrontation of the same order of magnitude. Fortunately, he input very little mental power when exploring. In addition, his own mental power is extremely stable. Otherwise, the counterattack of the Vast Sea Universe cover just now would be enough to hurt his soul body. The thing that hit Yun Feng's head was the Vast Sea Universe cover. The sharp tip of the tip made a small cut on Yun Feng's forehead. Yun Feng's skin was so tough that it was broken, which shows how sharp the triangular tip was. Of course, when it hit Yun Feng, it also emitted a special blue light, which made Yun Feng's defense ineffective. Only then was it able to successfully break the skin. Blood flowed, and the Vast Sea Universe cover spun around, and the whole thing was flat on the wound on Yun Feng's forehead, as if it had a spirit. Yun Feng's blood continued to flow into it, and the original blue halo fluctuations gradually turned red. To be honest, Yun Feng didn't really want to inherit the so-called sea god position. The predecessors could create their own gods, so why couldn't he? So he didn't believe it. However, knowing the formation of divine power earlier would be of great help to his future. And Yun Feng's physical recovery ability was actually unable to play any effect under the light of the Vast Sea Universe cover at this time. The wound didn't seem to shrink at all. Just keep bleeding and pouring into it. Not long after, a faint blue light floated out from the Vast Sea Universe cover, condensing into a very faint shadow, and a plain and old voice sounded. I don't know how long it has been, but I finally found a blood that tastes good, and finally found a physique that can withstand the power of the vast sea. The blue light flashed and re-entered the triangle of the vast sea universe cover. The halo on the triangle suddenly converged, breaking away from the wound on Yun Feng's forehead, spinning around, first hitting Yun Feng's shoulder, then rolling down his shoulder, and falling into his palm. At this time, the triangle had returned to blue, with only a slight flash of red light at the core. Without the restriction of the vast sea universe cover, the wound on Yun Feng's forehead healed quickly, and in the process of waking up, Yun Feng could feel that his conscious world seemed to feel something sucking his body and soul, and the huge suction force made him unable to control his body at all. Gradually, the suction made him weaker and weaker. It was as if everything around him was fading. It was at this time that a special force was injected into his heart. Then it slowly flowed into his brain. It turned into a coolness and combined with his brain. Although the feeling of weakness was still there, his brain became exceptionally clear and he could not feel the outside world, but he could clearly feel the blood flowing in his meridians, and even all the subtle changes in his internal organs. However, Yun Feng recovered quickly and ate a fairy bean first. Then Gu Duoyina noticed something was wrong and teleported directly to Yun Feng's side. After looking at Yun Feng's current appearance, she smiled and said, "Have you obtained the inheritance of the sea god?" Yun Feng was stunned and subconsciously said, "How do you know?" Gu Duoyina rolled her eyes at Yun Feng and said slowly, "I don't know how many years it has been since I fell into this world. I have been here since the angel god became a god. Of course, I also knew when the sea god became a god." Hearing what Gu Duoyina said, Yun Feng also knew that he was stupid. He actually asked such a stupid question. It really shouldn't be. Sorry. Haha tilde. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 432 Cayenne Kun cover. Gu Duoyina didn't care, but looked at Yun Feng's right hand. Yun Feng followed her gaze and found that the vast sea universe cover was lying quietly in his palm, but the original bright light on it had disappeared. Although it was still clear blue, it looked like an ordinary gem. Seeing this, Gu Duoyina said directly, "You can try to inject soul power into it. It should be fine now. Even if something happens, I can help you disconnect it in the first time." Yun Feng nodded and injected a trace of soul power into it. With the previous lesson, he was more cautious this time and injected only a small amount of soul power into the vast sea universe cover. When he injected that trace of soul power into it, suddenly, blue light bloomed, and the blue triangle seemed to come alive. The misty treasure light flowed, and the dazzling appearance appeared again when Yun Feng first got it. The blue light like water waves rippled and fluctuated in the room. A trace of strange patterns appeared on its surface. Yun Feng could clearly feel that the vast sea universe cover was eager for his soul power, and subconsciously increased the input. On the other side, Zook, Dawu, Juzukin and other women who found something wrong also came here. However, when they just entered the room and were illuminated by the light, they were stunned. Their faces changed, and they subconsciously took a step back, with horror in their beautiful eyes, because they found that this small triangle actually gave them a feeling of worship. That was the trembling from the martial soul. With their top martial souls, they actually had the feeling of worship. What on earth was this? Only Bibi Dong, Qian Renxu, Huliina, Binyao, Kai Ling, and Gu Duoyina were completely fine at the scene. You have to know that as Yun Feng's women, none of them have a simple martial soul. Except for Miao Miao, even the group of girls in Tanshui College have very strong martial souls. After all, if they were ordinary people, they would not be able to join the team. This is the reason. At this time, the feeling that this vast sea universe cover gave them was extremely amazing. The vast sea of heaven and earth in front of them would be like a mountain that towered over their heads. Zook had never thought that the vast sea of heaven and earth in the palace would have such an effect. She had no idea what was going on. As Yun Feng's soul power continued to be injected, the blue light became stronger and stronger, and the light was shining. The azure triangle slowly floated up from his palm and stopped when it floated in front of him. And it slowly rotated uncontrollably. Just when Yun Feng wanted to continue, suddenly, he saw a trace of blood-red light from the vast sea of heaven and earth, and then a blue light suddenly shot into his brow. Yun Feng felt his whole body tremble, and a huge amount of information rushed into his brain through mental transmission in an instant. The scenery in front of him changed, and Yun Feng's soul and consciousness were immersed in a wonderful world. It was an endless blue sea and blue sky, with a surging sea under his feet and a cloudless blue sky above his head. The feeling of physical and mental transparency made him feel endless desire in his heart, and the original feeling of weakness in his body had disappeared at this moment. A stream of clear information was transmitted into his mind, and each piece of information was very clear. The triangular vast sea universe cover was constantly changing in these information, showing its various wonderful uses. The method of use was so easily imprinted in Yun Feng's mind. He did not need to remember it, and it would always exist with his soul. The women were all watching the scene in front of them nervously. As a blue light from the vast sea universe cover was injected into Yun Feng's brow, Yun Feng's body trembled slightly and then returned to normal. But then, his whole body was covered with that layer of dazzling blue light, and his body slowly floated off the ground like the vast sea universe cover. His left hand was raised naturally and elegantly, and the vast sea universe cover floated into Yun Feng's palm, spinning around. Every time it rotated, the blue light on Yun Feng's body would become stronger. The brightest light was on his back, which was the place where he had the external soul bone. The women subconsciously formed a circle and surrounded Yun Feng in the center. They could feel that a strange change was happening to Yun Feng. Although they didn't know what it was, they could feel that it was not harmful, but a beneficial change. Circles of blue waves continued to condense around Yun Feng's body, rendering everything in his body blue. In Yun Feng's eyes, blue light was emitted. Unlike the light emitted by the purple demon pupil before, this light now looked crystal clear, like an extension of his body. Time passed by minute. When Yun Feng woke up from that wonderful world, it felt like only a moment had passed, but the skylight from the window of the room told him that it was already dawn. Unknowingly, a whole night had passed. Yun Feng clenched his fists, felt the power in his body, and immediately smiled. Qian Renxu especially wanted to know, because in Qian Renxu's eyes, it was just a cover. She had played with it many times before, but she didn't feel anything wrong. Why did such a big change happen when it came to Yun Feng's body? She didn't quite understand. Yun Feng couldn't help laughing, and naturally noticed Qian Renxu's resentment. So he said directly, "Since you all want to see what this thing is used for, let's go outside and show it." After leaving the palace and coming to the courtyard outside, Yun Feng's eyes flashed with purple light, and the vast sea of heaven and earth cover had already flown out of thin air, floating in front of him, following him forward. He didn't even need to grasp it with his hands. "This thing is very interesting, you watch it." After saying this, the purple light in Yun Feng's eyes suddenly became stronger. At the position between his eyebrows, a blue triangle pattern emerged, and the vast sea of heaven and earth cover soared into the air, and in the blink of an eye it had risen to a height of about 5 meters. Under the surprised gaze of everyone, it was seen to expand rapidly, and in a moment it had been enlarged hundreds of times. The blue light flashed and fell from the sky, covering all the women. The surroundings became a blue world, but everything outside could still be clearly seen, as if a transparent triangular cover was covering everyone. This is its first and greatest use. After forming this cover, it is like a room that can protect us. At the same time, after it covers us, it becomes invisible, without even a physical entity. It not only hides our bodies, but also completely hides our breath. With it, as long as it is released in any dangerous place, it can protect us. Chapter 433 Getting Married. As he spoke, Yun Feng raised his left hand, and the blue light disappeared. The vast sea universe cover was back in his grasp. Yun Feng waved his left hand again, and it flew out again, heading towards Meow Meow, who was the weakest. Meow Meow suddenly felt an inexplicable crisis, and subconsciously retreated quickly. However, she only felt a flash of blue light in front of her eyes, and the vast sea universe cover suddenly expanded, covering her body. However, this time it was not as big as before, and the space inside only covered her body. What surprised Meow even more was that her body was already unable to move in it, but she was not worried about what Yun Feng would do to her. The blue light flashed, and the vast sea universe cover was retracted again. This time it turned directly into a blue light and disappeared from Yun Feng's forehead, sinking into the center of his eyebrows. This is its second function. The first skill is called Vast Sea Body Shield, the second skill is called Heaven and Earth Calming Shield, and the third skill is called Vast Sea Raging Waves. The fourth skill is Heaven and Earth Destroying Demons. They are all used for attack. I can feel that this thing is very powerful, and the power is proportional to my soul power. Among them, the Vast Sea Body Shield consumes the least soul power. It only consumes 10% of my soul power to last for 12 hours. Unless the enemy can find it and break through its defense, they can hurt us. The Heaven and Earth Calming Shield can be calculated according to the opponent's mental power. It can freeze anyone with less than 3 times my mental power, but it cannot hurt the opponent. However, we can take the opportunity to leave, even if it is thousands of miles away. The Vast Sea Heaven and Earth Shield can return to my side. As for the power of the other 2 attack skills, I can't say how powerful they are, but they should not be weak, because any attack requires me to use all my soul power. But the strange thing is that no matter how much soul power I have, I can use it to attack, and it will absorb all my soul power. It's just that the power of the attack will change accordingly. The Vast Sea of Waves is a group attack skill, and the Kaian Kunpo Mo is a single attack skill. However, after hearing Yun Feng's words, the girls frowned slightly. Isn't this overlapping with Sister BG's soul skills? Yun Feng nodded. Yes, a little, and I don't lack attack methods. It's a bit useless because it absorbs all my soul power, but it's not completely without benefits. For example, the first skill, although it overlaps, it has the ability to protect itself anywhere, which is not bad. Douluo gave some different opinions. This thing is not as weak as you think, and it seems to have other uses. Otherwise, Douluo's eyes are venomous. She can easily see the extraordinariness of this thing. However, after getting this thing, Yun Feng's mind drifted to that overseas land, and the Sun and Moon continent. But now there is still a Hashan sect and a Xingluo Empire that have not been resolved. In fact, Yun Feng is not very worried. Anyway, the current strength of the Spirit Hall is easy to kill, but he has just become the Emperor of the Tandu Empire. If he goes out like this, I don't know what the people below will think, although he can return to the Tandu Empire at any time through his soul skills. But it's not good after all. But Yun Feng has thought of an idea. He is not here, but his woman can be. Let his woman manage the daily things. Anyway, there are not too many things to manage, because the ministers below are almost all ready before they are sent up. All Yun Feng has to do is nod. Another thing is about the promise to these women before, to hold a grand wedding for them. It is also to give them a name. Thinking of this, Yun Feng's eyes flashed with a gleam. Looking at the women and smiling, a week or so passed quickly. These days, the women haven't seen Yun Feng, and they don't know what Yun Feng has done. Naturally, they are very worried, but after 7 days, Yun Feng finally appeared in front of the women. This made the girls feel more at ease, because their bellies were getting bigger, and now was the time when they felt the least secure. Just when they wanted to ask Yun Feng what he had been doing during this time, walking into the house together were Ah Yin, Bibidong, Qian Renxu, Huliina, Biji, Ziji, Douluo, Binyao, and Kailing. In addition, there were Zhou, Juzuking, Juzian, Ningrong Narong, Zuk, Tang Yua, Mengyun, Juguyan, Miao Miao, Liu Ralong, Kuo Wu, Shui Yuir, Shui Binger, Zhu Wu, Yuheru, Shen Liu, Gukingbo, Kairu Asui, and Jiangzu. There were a total of 28 people. To be honest, if Yun Feng hadn't restrained himself, the number would have increased again. After all, if it weren't for the divine beast, at least Zuyi's widow couldn't think about it. The 7 days that Yun Feng disappeared were to arrange this century wedding, and he also took the opportunity to bring their existing family members to the Tandu Empire. Husband, Where have you been all this time? Why can't I find you?" Zhao Wu looked at Yun Feng and asked directly what the girls were thinking. Bibi Dong was also very strange. It had only been a few days since she went back last time, so why did she bring herself back again? She really couldn't figure it out. Under the gaze of the girls, Yun Feng smiled and said something that shocked all of them. "Let's get married." When Zhao Wu heard this, her first reaction was that she thought Yun Feng was joking. Before, Yun Feng had always said that he would wait a little longer. Knowing Yun Feng's character, Zhao Wu naturally knew what Yun Feng meant. It's just to pick up a few more girls, so she had never mentioned it on her own initiative. Now Wu was naturally very surprised after hearing this. Not only Zhao Wu, but there were many people who didn't believe it. Some of them were sentimental, and their eyes instantly became red. "You are not kidding us. This joke is not funny." Listening to Gu Duoyin's words, Yun Feng shook his head. He said very seriously, "I hope you can marry me. It's been so long, I should give you a status. I said before that there will be no distinction between big and small among my women. All are equal. And didn't you always say that the courtyard we lived in before couldn't accommodate sisters? Now the palace is so big. We have such a big home. I think it's time for us to get married. I have the confidence to face everything in this world." After saying this, under the gaze of the women, Yun Feng took out some rings that he had found in Gangxin City in the past 7 days. Each one is unique. The carvings on it are different. Yun Feng came in front of them and put them on them one by one. Looking at the rings on their fingers, they realized that Yun Feng was not joking, but was extremely serious. He really wanted to marry them. Chapter 434, A Grand Wedding, each with its own merits. Tang Yuo was wearing a golden long dress. The long skirt dragged on the ground, shining brightly. The material was extremely smooth silk, sticking to the curves. The hair was braided into a gorgeous and complicated long braid, mixed with gold threads, also shining brightly, extremely eye-catching. Gu Duoyin was wearing a white dress whiter than snow. The veil was high like clouds. The jade hands were slender like green onions. The beautiful face was smiling like flowers. It was really beautiful to suffocate. Zhu Guyan was in the green bamboo forest. Purple smoke was born, and Xiangfei was dressed in front of the Xiaoding. The Cheongsam was painted with real ladies, and the charming eyes conveyed the beauty of the moon. The fire-dancing woman was dressed in red like fire. Her clothes fluttered, and she was coquettish and wanton. She jumped lightly from the tree, like a butterfly flying in the wind, and like a glimpse of the flames of a startled beauty. Ning Rong was wearing a light pink palace dress, with a light blue butterfly embroidered on the corner of her skirt, ready to fly, and a layer of white gauze on the outside. Zhao Wu puts away her pearl crown, and wears the wedding dress of the princess and the concubine. She dances on the green grass and walks lightly. The green cloud fairy travels west to pray. She is not just about makeup, but also about jade. The green pears overwhelm the crab apples, and the moon wears the rain of stars. The brilliance is dim, purple, red, yellow and green. She is ashamed of the flowers and hates the colorful clothes. The snow sighs that there is no green in winter, and the elegance is reduced by 3 points. Juzuking, Juzian's beautifully curved bra makes her slender waist seem unable to withstand a grip. The high black bun and the dress that is better than snow complement each other, outlining the perfect curves. The fine folds at the hem of the long skirt sway gently with the footsteps of the person coming, and in the hazy white light, she seems like a fairy coming on the water. Yun wears a plain palace dress with a light blue gauze on the outside. The breeze blows, and the gauze flutters, and the whole person exudes a faint aura. 3,000 black hair was tied into a simple blue bun, and an elegant plum blossom hairpin was put on. She walked alone to the imperial garden, looking at the concubine who was slowly coming in front of her. Shui Duoer and Shui Binger's wedding dresses were crystal gray, simple and exquisite, shining with both gorgeous and elegant charm, which was breathtaking. There were also beauties like this wearing wedding dresses, slowly walking towards Yun Feng under the guidance of the maid. Yun Feng completely lost himself in the call of his husband, and he couldn't remember how many days he had fought. Anyway, after the wedding, Yun Feng directly drove all the spectators out. He didn't stop until he had no strength left. "Husband, don't you bring a few more sisters with you this time?" After hearing Zhao Wu's words, Yun Feng also kissed her on the face. "When has your husband ever treated you badly? I can come back whenever I want. If you want to go, I will definitely take you there with a teleportation, so you don't have to worry about this at all." After hearing Yun Feng's answer, Dao Wu and the others thought about it and agreed. Yun Feng was going out. The place he was going to was naturally the Sea God Island. He would not leave any chance to Tang San, especially after Tang San knew who was the person behind all of this. He had made up his mind, although he did this before, but this time he wanted to get all these seats of gods and get them into his own hands. Gu Duoina glanced at Yun Feng, and now she also experienced what it felt like to be a wife. She also had a certain understanding of what Bai Ji said before. She naturally wanted to go, but she was afraid that the ability to conceal her breath would fail, and it would be bad if it attracted the attention of the God's realm, so she forced herself not to go. It would be better to stay in this Tandu Empire. Anyway, if Yun Feng really had any problems, she could also locate him in the first time through the reverse scale and come directly to Yun Feng. As for the usual time, of course, he would observe all of Yun Feng's actions. Don't forget that this scale also has the function of projection, and those who are pregnant, Yun Feng does not intend to take them away. So he subconsciously looked at Shui Binger and Huo Wu. Ice and fire. He loves this pair to death. Others did not have any big opinions on this, because in fact, Yun Feng accompanied them the least. And the two of them were quite excited after knowing that they were going out with Yun Feng. And if they want to come back, as long as Gu Duoina reports the news, they can be teleported back immediately. Who doesn't want to go out and play? They are also looking forward to this. However, before leaving, it is inevitable that there will be a period of farewell. Even if the women know that they can come back at any time, they will remind Yun Feng and the other two again and again, and almost everyone's instructions to them are to let them put safety first. The carriage was pulled by 4 strong horses, and the ministers of the Tandu Empire also specially sent a soul saint as a driver, driving the carriage to the outside of Tandu City, because in their eyes, their emperor was looking for a way out for the future, so they could not bear the pain of the newlyweds. It was so touching, watching the carriage go away. The light in the eyes of the women could not help but dim a little, and everyone's heart seemed to follow Yun Feng and others to leave. Soon, the carriage left the west gate of Tandu City and went west along the official road. Yun Feng took out a detailed map. They needed to take a carriage to the west of the continent, the sea and the territory of Tandu Empire, and then change to a boat to reach the destination of this trip. The journey was extremely long. According to Gu Duoina's calculation, it would take them about 2 months to arrive. Although the sword will be very fast, Yun Feng went out this time not just to obtain the inheritance, but just wanted to spend more time with a few women. The carriage was very spacious. Even if there were more than a dozen people, there would be no problem. Everyone had not rested these nights. As the sadness of parting gradually faded away, fatigue surged. Yun Feng held one in each hand, feeling the warmth in his arms, and a satisfied smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. When night fell, the two girls woke up from their deep sleep. They didn't plan to travel at night. After all, the carriage was bumpy, and practicing would be ineffective. In the past, routine practice every night was indispensable, and the horses also needed sufficient rest. But now with Yun Feng here, how could they be honest? Soft and fresh, the faint fragrance became the most attractive scent. Looking down at the girl who was lying in his arms like a little lamb, his whole heart was trembling, and his breathing suddenly became heavy. The two's pink ears had turned red, and they lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at him at all. 10 days later, they had entered the western border of the Tandu Empire, and the horses had been changed in the previous city. The 4 new horses were enough to take them to the beach. There is a village ahead. Should we take a break? Then let's take a break. It was already afternoon, and the weather was getting colder. The horses were exhausted. Although they had taken a rest at noon, they had to rest again before dinner to maintain their speed. Chapter 435 Wolf Thief, Kill. The carriage continued to move forward for a while and stopped, just when Yun Feng and the other two thought they had arrived at the village and were about to get off to rest. There was a light knocking sound on the side of the carriage. The soul saint who was driving the carriage said, "Your Majesty, something seems to be wrong. We are almost at the village. but the village is surprisingly quiet. There is no one in the farmland outside the village. The three looked at each other, and Yun Feng said silently in his heart, "Let's go down and take a look." The three got off the carriage and looked forward. About half a mile away from them, there was a small mountain village. The village didn't look big, with only about 100 households. The village was surrounded by large tracts of farmland. Just as the Soul Saint said, from here, the village was surprisingly quiet, and there was no one in the farmland. Yun Feng focused his eyes. With his purple demon eyes, he could see much farther than the Soul Saint, and the distance of 500 meters was shortened in an instant. That's not right. The village seems to have been damaged. Many farmers' houses are damaged, and it seems that they were damaged by blunt instruments. There are also bloodstains. The bloodstains have not dried yet, so it should have happened not long ago. The Soul Saint stared at Yun Feng in amazement, thinking to himself, "His Majesty is worthy of being His Majesty even if he can see it from such a distance." Huo Wu and Shui Binger were shocked when they heard what Yun Feng said. Their brows slightly frowned. There are still people who dare to slaughter ordinary people. Aren't they afraid of the punishment of the Spirit Hall? Yun Feng had laid bare all his cards when he got married. Huo Wu and Shui Binger had naturally met Bibi Dong when they participated in the Soul Master competition, so they knew everything. Only Tang Yue, after struggling for a long time, perhaps because of her love for Yun Feng, finally stayed, but she was the one who persuaded the Hashan sect. Yun Feng and others would not ask about this. If the Hashan sect disagreed at that time, they could only take the measures that Yun Feng had said before. "Let's go over and take a look." Yun Feng's words at this moment also sounded timely. When they arrived here, Huo Wu and Shui Binger looked extremely ugly. They were as pale as paper. Their chests were still rising and falling, as if they were holding back something. They almost vomited everything in their stomachs before they gradually recovered. Dead people everywhere. Just behind the village, the ground was stained with blood. There were at least more than 100 bodies. When they arrived at the village, the Soul Saint also took the initiative to investigate the situation. Then when he came back to report the situation, his expression became extremely angry. They died tragically, killed by a group of people in strange costumes, dragging their bodies to the mountains behind, and many people's internal organs were flowing out. Those people in strange costumes even used spears to pick up the bodies of children. Even in the sky, I could smell the strong smell of blood. It was too miserable, too miserable. It seemed that only some young women were not dead. As a Soul Saint, he had seen everything, and killing was a common thing, but he had never seen such a bloody scene. It was really disgusting. I thought the village was miserable enough, but I didn't expect there would be more behind. Yun Feng and the other two looked at each other and then took off and headed towards the village. The carriage had disappeared from the place where they were before, and the defense and invisibility effects of Han Hai's protective shield of Han Hai Ki on Kunzan were activated. The magic of this thing lies in its effective range. As long as Yun Feng leaves a trace of mental power on it, it can be retrieved even if it is 100 miles away, and through the spiritual connection, there is no fear of not being able to find it. The three of them moved at full speed and quickly bypassed the village. Suddenly, they also smelled the strong smell of blood. Although they hadn't seen any figures yet, they could see how tragic the killing that had happened here before was from the ground stained with blood. There were even some organs left on the ground, emitting a disgusting smell. Only Yun Feng was a little better. After all, he came from the city of slaughter, where he had seen too many killings, and naturally he had seen a lot of these bloody things. Although Huo Wu and Shui Binger had seen dead people, it was the first time they felt such a strong smell of blood. Yun Feng looked at the blood stains on the ground and used his mental power. They should be heading in that direction, like robbers. "Let's go and take a look." The three set off again. In their eyes, the coldness was spreading invisibly. Not far ahead was a mountain range with peaks and ridges. The mountains here were not high, and it was very suitable for plant growth, with forests everywhere. It was too easy to track those targets. Just follow the bloodstains left on the ground and you won't lose them at all. The three entered the forest and soon caught up with their targets. Far away, the three had seen a dense crowd of figures in front of them. Yun Feng used the purple extreme demon pupil to look closely and saw a pile of corpses. Cries and shouts continued to come from the front. There were about 300 robbers, and they were all very strong. Each of them was more than 2 meters tall and had a solid physique. The most peculiar thing was that their hair was gray and their bodies were very hairy. They looked like savages, with lips protruding outwards, revealing 2 canine teeth that were several times larger than those of ordinary people, and their faces were painted with dazzling oil paint. Seeing the opponent clearly, the anger in Huo Wu and Shui Binger's eyes could not be dissipated immediately, and they whispered to Yun Feng, "It's wolf bandits." "I didn't expect that there are wolf bandits in the Tandu Empire." Yun Feng was even more furious. He is now the emperor of the Tandu Empire. This group of wolf bandits is undoubtedly slaughtering his people. How can he endure this? Wolf bandits can be said to be human, or not. They are a combination of humans and a soul beast called the Gale Wolf, the martial soul of Feng's the Ocean from the Four Elements Academy. The Gale Two-Headed Wolf martial soul is a mutant and enhanced body of the Gale Wolf. However, the martial soul does not have some of the nature of the Gale Wolf. The Gale Wolf is a very lustful person, and it is comparable to the he ape. It can mate with almost any creature of similar size to itself, and it likes to seduce human women the most. When they mate with human women, they will give birth to a special population of wolf bandits. It can be said to be a half-wolf, half-human monster. Wolf bandits are born with the physique, speed and some innate abilities of the Gale Wolf. It also has a certain amount of human wisdom, extremely bloodthirsty and lustful. Wherever there are wolf bandits, the people living there will be unlucky. These wolf bandits not only plunder, but also kill humans and use them as their food. Women who stay here temporarily for sexual intercourse and those who are not pregnant will also become their food. But he can't do anything at this moment. He wants to see where the base camp of this group of wolf bandits is. So he directly grabbed Huo Wu and Shui Binger. Under the puzzled gazes of the two women, Yun Feng also expressed all his thoughts. The two women also agreed with this. The three of them suppressed their anger until they followed them to their nest. Yun Feng suddenly exploded. Kill. Chapter 436. Give them some relief. Huo Wu and Shui Binger were not to be outdone, and had long been filled with anger. Now Yun Feng was not only their husband but also the ruler of a country. They had no seniority, so they could be understood as all queens. Naturally, the invisible sense of responsibility came to them, and they were naturally extremely angry. Even if it was just a passerby who saw this scene, he would not be able to help it. How different were these wolf bandits from Tang San? Yun Feng directly summoned the Blue-Silver Emperor, and then the soul power in his body burst out, blocking everything around. The fourth soul ring shone, and the Blue-Silver Emperor continued to differentiate in the sky, and in a blink of an eye, a torrent was formed, covering the sky directly, and Huo Wu and Shui Binger, one red and one blue, appeared behind them. The fire shadow plus the ice phoenix bloomed with their own colors, and combined with Yun Feng's attack, they directly swept everything in front of them. After Yun Feng came in front of him, he operated the Blue-Silver Emperor and cut those wolf bandits who were not dead yet like melons and vegetables, beheaded, broken waste. When the wolf bandits found that many of their companions were killed, their eyes suddenly turned bloodshot, and they got on all fours and rushed towards them frantically. Their speed was extremely fast. They fully exerted their own wolf characteristics. Their limbs ejected 3-inch-long claws, and their strong muscles pushed them to leap and fly in the mountains and forests. These wolf bandits were very smart. Not only did they chase them head-on, but a large number of wolf bandits also bypassed from both sides, preparing to cut off Yun Feng and his three companions' retreat. But Yun Feng and his three companions were afraid of this. The reason why Yun Feng did not kill them all in one move was that he was worried about hurting those women. Now that they were surrounded, several wolf bandits with extremely large bodies and green hair came quietly. It did not make any sound and looked more like a wolf. There was a faint green light surging around its sturdy body, and its eyes looked at Yun Feng and his companions with a grim look. Yun Feng also smiled when he saw this. He could feel that the soul power level of these wolf bandits was about level 50. Yun Feng, who didn't want to say anything or look at them anymore, summoned the soul power in his body and swept out a vine, under Yun Feng's control. These blue wolf bandits died directly. The other remnants wanted to escape after seeing this, but they were caught up by Yun Feng's first soul skill, the vine, and beheaded. After checking, Huo Wu and Shui Binger finally came to Yun Feng. Except for those wolf bandits who were definitely dead, he kicked the other corpses. There was no way there were any living wolf bandits left, but when they came to the wolf bandits' lair, they were stunned. There were white bones, blood, broken limbs, like a purgatory on earth, and there were only a few sobs inside. Yun Feng immediately realized that he seemed to be late. They should have killed those women and children before we took action. Unexpectedly, our appearance. Huo Wu and Shui Binger's eyes were full of regret and pain at this moment. Yun Feng took a deep breath and forced a smile. Isn't this revenge for them? Maybe not all the people inside are dead yet. When they said this, a glimmer of light appeared in the eyes of the two women. Going deeper, the women who were still alive appeared in front of Yun Feng and the other two. However, there was no light in the eyes of these women. Their stomachs were bulging and their hands and feet were all broken. After seeing that they were human beings through the faint light, their eyes were full of pleading. What kind of eyes were they? They were eyes of despair, numbness and death. Seeing this, the two women were about to step forward, but Yun Feng stopped them directly. His voice also became calm. Give them a relief. After Yun Feng said this, the women looked at Yun Feng with gratitude in their eyes, and then closed their eyes directly, as if there was nothing in this world that they missed. After sighing, Yun Feng came to them with the blue silver emperor. All those wolf thieves are dead. I have helped you to avenge them. After saying this, Yun Feng directly helped them end their lives. By the way, he also killed the wolf bandits who had not yet come out. After walking out of the lair, Yun Feng took a deep look, and then used the power of his Fire Dragon King's soul bone, the heavenly fire funeral. After burning the entire cave to ashes, he took back the flames. Before leaving, Yun Feng suddenly saw a flash of green light from the body of the killed blue wolf bandit leader. He cut open the blue wolf bandit's thigh, revealing a bright green light inside. The green light also attracted the attention of Huo Wu and Shui Binger, and the two came over. The three looked at each other, and for a moment they didn't know what to say. The green object turned out to be a soul bone, a right leg bone. The faint green light contained in it showed a very strong aura. Husband, do you think this thing exists on its own, or is it obtained by hunting soul beasts? Yun Feng shook his head. This is the first time I have seen a creature like a wolf thief. After saying this, he put the soul bone into his ring. Even if he can't use it himself, it would be nice to reward it to others later. But Yun Feng would not give it to his woman. His woman cannot use such garbage. After all, Guidobuena is his wife now. Some soul bones are actually useless to soul beasts. It's better to keep them. Then he gathered the bodies of the wolf thieves and the villagers together. Yun Feng and the other two stood in front of the bodies of the villagers and sighed slightly. I'm sorry that I couldn't save you, but we have avenged you. You can rest in peace now. The three of them did not communicate, but they all mourned for the villagers who died tragically for a few seconds before setting fire to it. After returning to the carriage, the Soul Saint saw that Yun Feng and the others were not in a good mood, so he did not disturb them. He just drove the carriage and left quickly. It was late at night, and everyone was sitting around the campfire. Yun Feng covered the few people with the vast sea universe cover. There was no need for anyone to keep watch. After all, the power they exuded was so great that ordinary soul beasts would not dare to approach. Because of what happened today, Huo Wu and Shui Binger were also very tired, so Yun Feng did not make a fuss. The vast sea universe cover quietly covered everyone, but Yun Feng could not see that outside the triangular light cover that made them completely invisible, a faint blue shadow was quietly emerging behind him. This blue shadow appeared outside the vast sea universe cover. It was as blurry as blue smoke. The color was very light, and there was no brilliance at all. In this quiet night, if you don't look carefully, it is difficult to find its existence. Chapter 437 The Vast Ocean. However, if you look through this blue figure without being disturbed by the invisibility effect of the vast sea universe cover, you can find that Yun Feng's back is faintly flashing with the same light blue. The burning sensation lasted for a long time before gradually dissipating. When the burning sensation disappeared, Yun Feng only felt an indescribable comfort all over his body. Slowly opening his eyes, the sky had turned milky white, and dawn was coming. Yun Feng looked around and saw the two women sleeping soundly on his legs. Yun Feng knew that the changes in his body were due to the vast sea universe cover. Moreover, the combination of the vast sea universe cover and Yun Feng was more thorough than the soul bone. The soul bone was only a physical combination, but this thing was not only a physical combination, but also wanted to connect with Yun Feng's soul. Whenever Yun Feng thought of it, he often had a weird idea, as if the vast sea universe cover was relying on him. But Yun Feng didn't care much. If he didn't agree to become the sea god, could he be forced? In addition, he was not alone now, and he had Gu Duoyin by his side. The reason why he let this thing follow him was not just to get a free ride from the sea god, and to meet that Poseidon. He also wanted to see what the woman who could attract the love of two extreme Luos looked like. Yun Feng swore that it was definitely not his own LSP heart that was wrong. He just wanted to get to know her. The sky gradually brightened. Yun Feng and the other two habitually practiced the purple extreme demon pupil, woke up the soul saint, and after breakfast, they set out on the journey again. Long-distance travel is originally very hard, but it is nothing for soul masters, and for Yun Feng, the journey is not a very uncomfortable thing for him. After all, he is accompanied by a beautiful woman. When the carriage finally sent Yun Feng and others to the extreme west of the Tandu Empire, the impact caused by the previous wolf thieves has now completely healed. Yun Feng spread out the map on the carriage, and the two women surrounded him and looked at the map. Pointing at the map, Yun Feng said slowly, "We are about to arrive here." Hanhai City is the only port city on the western coast of the empire. It is built by the sea. If we want to go to Poseidon Island, we must rent a boat from the port of this city and then sail out to sea. It will take about 10 days to reach the location of Poseidon Island. Of course, if you choose to fly, you can arrive very quickly. At this time, Kuo Wu took a look at the soul saint, and then said to Yun Feng, "Husband, should we let him wait for us in Hanhai City, or let him go back?" After thinking for a while, Yun Feng said directly, "We don't know how long we will stay on Poseidon Island this time, so let him go back. When everything is done, we will rent a carriage from Hanhai City, or go back on our own." Hanhai City, the largest city in the western part of the Tandu Empire, is also the largest coastal city and port city on the Douluo continent. The huge city is built by the sea, or built on a mountain by the sea. No matter how the tides rise and fall, it cannot be shaken in the slightest. The wide and thick city wall was definitely at the main city level. Before entering the city, everyone could already smell a faint salty smell. At this time, they had already arrived at the city gate and got off the carriage because of routine inspection. Kuo Wu and Shui Binger frowned and said, "What is this smell? It's weird." Yun Feng smiled. "Is it familiar?" The two girls seemed to think of something, and their faces suddenly turned red. When had the soldiers guarding the city gate ever seen such a beautiful woman, and two of them at once? However, seeing Yun Feng's imposing appearance, they immediately understood that she was not an ordinary person. These low-ranking soldiers guarding the gate could only swallow their saliva secretly. A soldier said kindly, "This is your first time in Hanhai City. What you smell is the smell of the sea. There is a beautiful sea to the west of Hanhai City. The sea breeze blows, and naturally there will be a salty smell coming over." At this time, the routine inspection had ended, and the items they carried were all in the soul guide. Naturally, nothing would be found out. After thanking the soldier who explained, they did not get on the carriage again, walked directly into the city. Passing through the city wall and entering Hanhai City, the salty and fishy smell is a bit stronger. Yun Feng and the other two found through observation that there are some differences between the people in Hanhai City and the inland people. The people here are generally shorter and their skin is darker than that of the inland people. When they entered the city, they also attracted the attention of the people in Hanhai City. The main reason was the two girls, who were so beautiful. Of course, there were also many people who stayed on Yun Feng. After all, Yun Feng's appearance was the kind of level that could kill both young and old. Although the halo was turned off, It was still like a walking hormone for the women around. Huo Wu's passion was like fire, with a hot body, and Shui Binger was cold and quiet, as white as jade. Such different styles, but all of them were stunning girls. Even if one appeared, it would attract people's attention, not to mention that two people appeared at the same time. Wherever they passed, the rate of turning back was almost 100%. So both men and women on the street were directly attracted by the three people. After a brief discussion, everyone decided to stay in Hanhai City for 2 days. One reason was to rest after the journey, the other was to make some preparations before going out to sea. They found the best hotel in the western part of the city and stayed there. The Soul Saint was ready to go back, but young Feng still asked him to stay for another day. It was necessary to rest before leaving after a long journey. Love the people like your own children. There is no harm in building a reputation. Besides, the Soul Saint was really tired from driving all the way. Huo Wu and Shui Binger naturally lived with Yun Feng. Now that the sisters are gone, they naturally want to enjoy themselves. After fooling around for a long time, Yun Feng and the other two had dinner. Looking at the two girls, Yun Feng said directly, "Wait, let's go out to buy some necessary things for going out to sea, and rent a boat by the way. And who of you can swim?" Hearing Yun Feng's question, Huo Wu was stunned. Shui Binger was fine, but it was strange that she couldn't swim after coming out of Danshui College. Seeing Huo Wu's expression, Yun Feng immediately understood what was going on. However, Yun Feng also expressed his understanding. After all, she lived inland, was from Blazing Fire Academy, and her martial spirit was also of fire attribute, so it was normal that she couldn't swim. Huo Wu looked at Yun Feng's face, hesitated for a moment, and still asked, "Husband, it shouldn't be a problem if you can't swim, and you can fly." Yun Feng nodded, then smiled and said, "Well, I just asked in advance. After all, the sea is vast and boundless. How can we fly out casually? Moreover, there are soul beasts in the sea. Even if we can fly, there is no place to land. How can we deal with the attacks of soul beasts in the sea? It seems that before entering the Sea God Island, we have to face the problem of swimming first. Of course, these are the problems that ordinary people encounter. Now that I am here, you don't have to worry about these." Chapter 438. This is my wife? I don't want to hear anything bad. Seeing Yun Feng breathing heavily, Huo Wu pinched Yun Feng's waist directly, her beautiful eyes moving. Yun Feng was still smiling, but he still put forward his opinion. "I think it is necessary to buy a soul guide suitable for use in the sea, such as the kind that can be transformed into a ship." The two women didn't say anything. After all, if Yun Feng had any problems and didn't show up in time, it would be a good choice to have a spare ship. Of course, with Yun Feng's strength, nothing should happen. Shui Binger was still so gentle, looking at Yun Feng and said slowly, "This Hanhai City is not small, there should be an auction house or something like that. Let's go and have a look later." "Then let's go. It's better to prepare early than late." As soon as they said it, the three of them acted collectively and asked in the hotel. Sure enough, there was an auction house in Hanhai City. There was also a place that the three of them were very familiar with, the Great Fighting Soul Arena. After learning this news, everyone discussed it and made some changes to the arrangements for the evening. The fighting style of Sea Soul Masters is very different from that of ordinary Soul Masters. If they could meet the Sea Soul Masters in the Great Soul Fighting Arena of the vast Sea City first, it would obviously be of great benefit to them when they land on the Sea God Island. Therefore, they decided to go to the vast Sea Soul Fighting Arena first. I just don't know if they can find a suitable opponent for Yun Feng. This is very difficult, but even if they can't find one, they can still watch it. After all, although this vast sea city also belongs to the Tandu Empire and Yun Feng ran away not long after ascending the throne, so naturally he didn't know these things. The auction house and the Great Soul Fighting Arena are one, and after observing the situation of the Sea Soul Masters, they can also buy the required soul guides by the way, which is extremely convenient. The scale of the vast Sea Soul Fighting Arena can only be regarded as medium in the eyes of the three people, but the degree of liveliness is not inferior to any soul fighting arena they have seen. There is still some time before the game starts, and the people entering are already crowded, and the attendance rate is extremely high. Feng, who couldn't buy a ticket, still showed his identity and got a ticket for the VIP room. When the three sat down in the room, they were immediately attracted by the scene in the vast sea soul fighting arena. It's really different. Feng looked at the fighting spirit field outside the one-sided light transmitting glass of the VIP room and couldn't help being a little surprised. They chose the VIP room of the 2-on-2 fighting spirit field to watch the game. The reason for choosing this place is that this is the only VIP seat left. Although the owner here wanted to help Feng change the place, he was rejected by Feng. Although he is the emperor, there is no need to mobilize a large number of troops, which will lose the fun of playing. And in this group fighting spirit field, it is not a huge arena like the big fighting spirit field they have seen before. It is a huge pool. The diameter of the pool is 100 meters. The clear blue water of the pool is like a huge sapphire mirror with ripples. The venue is already full of spectators. Although the VIP room has a good sound insulation effect, just watching the movements of the audience in the venue can clearly feel the degree of the warm atmosphere. Wu picked up the sign in the VIP room and read, "The fighting soul pool is circular, with a diameter of 108 meters and a depth of 10 meters. The participating soul masters who leave the vertical range of the fighting soul pool will be judged as losers, and those who voluntarily admit defeat or lose the ability to fight will be judged as losers." Looking at Wu and Shui Binger's eager expressions, Feng smiled. He didn't want to go down now, because there was really no challenge. Another point is that some high-level officials in Hanhai City have already received his news, so in order to avoid unnecessary sensation, Feng chose not to go down. "Do you want to go down and fight? But the fighting soul of the Soul Emperor should be difficult to find." After Wu and Shui Binger looked at each other, they found each other's fighting spirit, and then smiled together and said to Feng, "We want to give it a try." The registration time for the competition soon arrived, and then there was a lottery ceremony. Unless there are particularly outstanding contestants who will be arranged to compete directly, the general contestants will decide their opponents by drawing lots. Wu and Shui Binger were lucky enough to meet several teams of Soul Emperors who came to participate in the soul fighting. What was even more unexpected was that Wu and Shui Binger were drawn to be the first group to appear. The host's voice was transmitted into the VIP room through a special channel. The first match of the 2-on-2 soul fighting competition is between the Ice and Fire combination and the Sea Soul Brothers. Now, let us briefly introduce the two opponents. As everyone knows, the Sea Soul Brothers have won 4 consecutive victories. As long as they win one more game, they can get additional points for a 5th consecutive victory. As Soul Emperor level powerhouses, they are about to advance to the Gold Soul fighting level. You can imagine how important the winning streak points are to them. Therefore, I am sure that the Sea Soul Brothers, who are both level 68, will go all out in this match. Let's take a look at their opponents, the Ice and Fire combination. This is their first time to come to our Hanhai Soul Fighting Arena to participate in the soul fighting competition. Feng is a level 59 Soul Master, and the soul powers of the two are only level 65 and level 63 respectively. Frankly speaking, I don't think much of this new combination. They will have to work hard to win in front of the powerful Sea Soul Brothers. Okay, without further ado, the 2-on-2 soul fighting competition. The first match. Please invite the contestants on both sides to enter. Stimulated by the host's words with a strong sensational atmosphere, the emotions of the audience have been fully mobilized. In the soul fighting competition, one-on-one and group battles are more attractive than 2-on-2. Today, the place is packed. Most of them are here to see the Hypo Brothers. The lottery of the organizing committee obviously deliberately arranged the Hypo Brothers to appear first. As for the Ice and Fire combination, they were actually selected by lottery. Of course, there are only a few pairs of level 60 first-class Soul Masters participating in the 2-on-2. High-level Soul Masters rarely appear in the big soul fighting field, let alone such a remote Hanhai city. I don't know what happened today, but so many teams appeared. On the left side of the VIP room, 2 graceful figures appeared at the exit of the passage at the same time. Both of them wore a standard mask used in the soul fighting field. Seeing them appear, Yun Feng in the VIP room couldn't help but smile, and said directly to the manager who came, "This is my wife? I don't want to hear anything bad." The manager trembled, then greeted Yun Feng, and hurriedly left the VIP room. Then, under Yun Feng's gaze, a large number of people soon appeared in the audience and issued warnings one by one. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 439. Does she want to evaporate all the water in the fighting spirit pond? In the venue, two women walked out slowly, calm and confident. It was as if they had not heard the host's introduction. The power they had seen was completely incomparable to the current ones. With their vision and strength improved, they naturally would not worry about these things. At this moment, a louder cheer suddenly sounded, and the sound waves covered one after another. Just opposite Huo Wu and Shui Binger, on the other side of the pool, two people walked out. They were two middle-aged men who looked to be in their 40s. They did not wear masks like Huo Wu and the others. They looked exactly the same, with burly figures and a blue tattoo on the right side of their necks that looked like fish gills. Seeing these two people appear, Yun Feng in the VIP room couldn't help but frown. Huo Wu and Shui Binger may have met their opponents. These two soul masters may not be easy to deal with. Yun Feng was not worried that they could not beat them. After all, their current strength was no longer something that ordinary soul emperors could match. You have to know how many soul bones there are in the Tandu Great Forest. Yun Feng saw them catch them all. The soul bones handed down from endless years, although there are few in 100,000 years, are not absent. Each of his women is allocated a few that suit their attributes. Just using the soul bone skills can kill the opponent. The reason why he thinks so is because he can see that the Hypo brothers are twins, and they must have a tacit understanding when they cooperate with each other, and twins are the easiest to have martial soul fusion skills. However, the two women at this moment naturally couldn't guess what Yun Feng was thinking. Instead, they looked at the two opposite with interest. In their hearts, they were thinking about how long it would take to deal with the opponent, and whether to let them go a little, so that they could have more fun. The Hypo brothers did not despise Huo Wu and Shui Binger, but their originally calm eyes became cold. The elder brother of the two brothers is called Hai Bei, and the younger brother is called Hai Gui, and the names together are exactly one word Po. The host said in a shocked voice, "Ah, what did we see?" Brother Hypo's eyes have changed. It seems that I really have to pray for them. Both sides can release your martial spirits. Count down to 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The fighting spirit begins. While the host counted down, both sides released their martial spirits. Shui Binger also released her Ice Phoenix martial spirit. The crystal-like dazzling phoenix soared into the sky, and the ice blue light dyed the air around her body. The dazzling brilliance immediately made the audience stand still. This is not over yet. The moment Huo Wu's Naruto martial spirit came out, the audience who were shocked by Shui Binger's martial spirit before, the next moment, the audience seats had turned into a sea of laughter. Participating in the fighting spirit in the vast sea fighting spirit arena, it turned out to be a fire-attributed martial spirit. Isn't this a dead end? The Hypo brothers on the opposite side also released their martial spirits at the same time. They were naturally not as ignorant as the audience. When the two women on the opposite side had 6 optimally matched spirit rings, 2 yellow, 2 purple, 1 black, and black, they immediately knew that today's opponent was definitely not ordinary. The spirit rings of the two brothers were the same color, 2 yellow, 3 purple, and 1 black, which was also a very good spirit ring configuration. Their martial spirits were exactly the same. At the moment of release, both of them had a layer of blue halo-like water waves. Then, the tattoos on their necks actually came alive and really turned into a huge gill. The whole body became fat, the legs came together to form a huge tail fin, and the skin of the whole body turned dark black. The two brothers jumped up at the same time, and with a splash, yes, only one splash, They sank into the huge fighting spirit pool at the same time. There was no splash when they entered the water. The most bizarre thing was that after they entered the water, the surface of the entire fighting spirit pool remained calm. Huo was a little angry when she saw the whole audience laughing, but she soon regained her composure. However, those who knew her personality had already begun to mourn for the two people on the opposite side. You have to know that this sister was the one who dared to challenge young Feng in the past. She was originally the kind of person who was extremely competitive. It was only after she became young Feng's woman that she restrained herself a lot. Now that she was provoked, it was naturally impossible for her to fight so easily. With the increase of soul power, the fire shadow on Huo's body became more gorgeous than before. Although it was condensed by flames, it was now completely materialized by flames. It was as if it was not transformed by soul power, as if there was really someone standing behind her, watching all this. No matter how Huo performed before, at least the martial spirit she showed now was extremely gorgeous, and the audience who were familiar with fighting spirits immediately became interested. Two mainland soul masters against two sea soul masters. Who can win? No, it should be said that how much trouble these two female soul masters can bring to the sea soul brothers. Until now, none of these ordinary audiences thought that Huo and Shui Binger could win this fighting spirit. After Huo exchanged a simple look with Shui Binger beside her, Shui Binger directly used her sixth soul skill, 1,000 miles of ice. The huge fighting soul pool was instantly frozen, and a thick layer of ice formed. This was when Shui Binger was holding back, otherwise, the entire pool would be directly frozen, and even if the people inside were rescued in time, they would suffer irreversible injuries, so she didn't use her full strength. But this is better for Huo. After all, if Shui Binger solved all of them at once, how could she play? When she thought of this, a smile appeared on Huo's face. Then, in full view of everyone, the fifth soul ring on her body shone. A strong golden red flame had already poured out from her body, and the target was the ice under her feet. A surprising scene happened. With a puff, the originally calm ice surface could no longer remain calm. A large amount of steam rose up, and the golden flame actually went straight into the ice water. The audience was stunned to see that the flame did not go out after entering the water. There was only one more pillar of fire in the clear ice. The ice on both sides of the pillar of fire was melting quickly, and then it kept surging, bringing a lot of white water vapor into the air. Yun Feng's originally slightly frowned brows, but now he relaxed, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Smart. A large amount of water vapor rose up, but as soon as it approached Huo's body, it immediately disappeared. Huo's flames continued to burn the pool water under the ice layer, and the flames just remained underwater, without increasing or decreasing. The host's exclamation appeared again. Wow, what is this fire spirit master doing? Oh my god, why is her flame not afraid of water? Is she going to evaporate all the water in the fighting spirit pool? Chapter 440. A trifle. Huo's strange behavior naturally attracted the attention of the Hypo brothers. They were in the water, and the feeling was the most obvious. Huo's golden flame was injected into the water, but they knew that it was impossible to evaporate all the water here with just such a soul skill. You know, this is a pool with a diameter of more than 100 meters and a depth of 10 meters. How much water is that? In order to maintain such a fighting soul pool, the Han-Hai Great Fighting Soul Arena has consumed a huge amount of manpower and material resources to complete it. However, they also discovered that since Huo's golden flame was injected into the water, the pool water that had originally become extremely cold due to Shui Binger's soul skill began to change. The water temperature actually began to rise slowly. Although the rising speed was very slow, as sea soul masters, they still sensitively discovered the changes. The two brothers couldn't help but be greatly surprised. What kind of flame is this? It can slowly increase the temperature of such a large pool of water. So what kind of terrifying degree will its own temperature reach? We can't wait any longer. Hai Bei and Hai Gui attacked Huo almost at the same time. Two clearly visible streams of water rose from both sides of Huo's body. They turned into two huge water dragons and rushed towards her body at the same time. Huo snorted coldly. A trifle. She was waiting for the opponent's attack. Yun Feng had never treated them badly. He took out all the immortal herbs from before. Tang San in the original novel only took out a few of them for some reason. You should know that the description at the beginning was that the entire yin-yang eye of ice and fire was covered with medicinal herbs. Although other treasures accounted for the majority, he still did not take them out at the end. He left his so-called brother's wife Bei Chen Xiong to die alone in the lower world. It was simply funny. Yun Feng would not do those things to his woman. He took out all his immortal herbs and distributed them in order. If there were any missing, he would directly use immortal bins to cultivate immortal herbs. When he went to collect them before, he left seeds for those who should leave seeds, and left rhizomes for those who should leave rhizomes. So there is no need to worry about the problem of extinction. Sustainable development is the correct way to cultivate. You have to leave a little way out for everything. After all, he also wanted to imitate the plan of Tang Fazu, that is, to treat these immortal herbs as his own back garden. So now Huo Wu and Shui Binger are both people who have taken the immortal grass. Huo Wu's martial spirit has even been improved again because of this incident. She deliberately used the golden flame to raise the water temperature. In fact, she consumed a lot of her own soul power by doing this, and it was actually very difficult for her to heat up the water to a terrifying level, and it would take a lot of time. So much water, how could it be so easy to boil? She just wanted to attract the two sea soul masters to attack her. She just wanted to make a quick decision. Since the opponent attacked her in panic, then the chance to win came. The huge fire shadow suddenly gathered around him, and then swung his fist fiercely to meet the two water dragons that rushed over. Suddenly, two huge clouds of water mist rose into the air, and the two water dragons were directly vaporized under the golden flame. Huo Wu's flames that had been injected into the bottom of the pool were swung out at the same time, like a whip from underwater to the elder brother of the Sea Soul brothers, Hai Bei. With the improvement of martial spirit quality, Huo Wu's attributes are too terrifying now. Wherever she passes, the water in the pool rolls around. Although this is only a small part of the fighting spirit pool, the steam and white smoke it brings up have an extremely magnificent momentum. Before the flames arrived, Hai Bei had already felt the surrounding water suddenly become hot. He flicked his tail and suddenly fled away. His speed underwater was no less than that of an arrow, which really surprised Huo Wu. This flame immediately lost its target. Hai Gui quickly fled to his brother's side. The twin brothers were in sync, and the third soul rings on their bodies lit up at the same time. The shining purple light painted the water around their bodies, and in an instant, the surface of the entire fighting spirit pool suddenly fluctuated violently. The martial spirits of the Hai Po brothers are seals, and their third soul skill is called Stormy Waves. As Sea Soul Masters, their combat capabilities on land are very poor, but in water, their combat capabilities are quite terrifying. Under the effect of their soul skills, the entire fighting soul pool was surging like a tumbling torrent, and the layers of water waves gradually rose. After a while, it actually climbed to a height of nearly 10 meters and rushed towards Huo Wu and Shui Binger. What was even more terrifying was that the waves were higher and higher, and there was also a faint purple light on the waves. After Huo Wu and Shui Binger took a look, they directly used the ghost shadow to dodge the attack from the side. They could also see that this was definitely not ordinary water under the soul skills of the other two. Naturally, it was impossible to take it stupidly. After dodging, Shui Binger seemed to have seen the thoughts in Huo Wu's eyes, and she did not hold back. The huge ice phoenix let out a loud scream. Then, under the influence of Shui Binger's soul skills, the originally melted water surface in the fighting soul pool was frozen again. It was like a world of ice and snow. The actions of the Hypo brothers were directly frozen by the cold ice. Huo Wu saw the opportunity and her golden red flames shot up into the sky. The waves could not cover her flames after all. The storm calmed down. The bodies of the Hypo brothers trembled in the water. Huo Wu passed through the ice crystals, causing the water temperature around their bodies to rise sharply. Under the traction of the qi, they were all injected with a fire force. It was indescribable. The two brothers looked at each other and saw the anger in each other's hearts. The fifth soul ring on their bodies lit up. They wanted to make a last-ditch effort and forcefully broke free from the restraints of the ice crystals and rushed directly towards Huo Wu. 2-1. Both were sole emperors. With Huo holding back, there was a stalemate for a while. The Hypo brothers obviously did not want to give Huo a break. Although the fire force invaded their bodies, it seemed to have dissipated on its own at this time. The strongest fifth soul ring of the two was already completely shining. The ice crystals on the surface of the fighting soul pool suddenly became violent. With the rendering of the purple halo, a series of purple water arrows shot up into the sky and directly passed through the ice crystals. The Seal Soul Master Hypo brothers released the fifth soul skill, the Demon Soul Arrow Rain. The Demon Soul Arrow Rain erupted, and each water arrow was about 1 meter long and in the shape of a date pit. The thickest part in the center was about the thickness of a human arm. The rapid speed seemed to have pierced the sky, and the sharp whistling was thrilling. Countless water arrows shot directly at Huo and Shui Binger in the air. Those were not ordinary water arrows. Each water arrow was condensed with huge soul power. Under the effect of the water attribute Martial Soul, this fifth soul skill can be said to complement each other. After seeing this scene, Huo and Shui Binger did not intend to hold back anymore. Huo directly released a violent ball of fire, and Shui Binger also released an icicle containing extreme cold power. In the puzzled eyes of the audience. Chapter 441, Soul Fusion Technique. The two soul powers began to merge, producing an extremely terrifying aura that continued to rage above the fighting soul pool. Huo immediately activated the fire resistance ring and came to Shui Binger. Shui Binger also condensed an ice armor for Huo and herself to protect herself. Ice and fire collided, and the magic soul rain was affected by the airflow when it approached. Then, in full view of the crowd, ice and fire completely merged, producing a dazzling white light. The audience was about to go crazy, but the strange thing was that they couldn't shout at this time, and all their energy fell on the last white light. Today's 2-on-2 fighting souls brought them too many surprises. They had never seen such a magnificent scene of soul skills colliding. Boom! With a roar, the powerful airflow immediately dried up all the water in the fighting soul pool and evaporated it. In this huge explosion, the eyes of the Hypo brothers before they lost were full of bitterness. They had not used their martial soul fusion skills yet, but they were defeated directly. How unwilling! Plop! The two fell to the ground almost at the same time and lost consciousness. This fighting soul competition ended with a bit of drama. The host was soaked by the water droplets condensed from the steam, but he still did not change his dull posture. The corners of his mouth kept twitching. The Hypo brothers actually lost? He knew that the Hypo brothers had martial soul fusion skills, otherwise he would not support them like that. And they did not use their martial soul fusion skills. Although the two women had the upper hand, how could they lose? Not to mention that he did not understand. Even the nobles and powerful soul masters who had just arrived did not know what was going on. Why are the two women standing on the stage so strong? When Yun Feng became emperor, Yun Feng's life was actually sent to the hands of the nobles. Naturally, he knew that the two women on the stage were the women Yun Feng married not long ago, and he also knew their talents, but this is a bit too exaggerated. While they were stunned, Huo, who was more straightforward, also shouted directly on the stage, "Host, where is the host? Hurry up and announce our victory." Yes, yes, the host finally came to his senses and hurriedly announced loudly through the loudspeaker soul guide in his hand, "The game is over, and the ice and fire combination won." At this time, the Hypo brothers had also been carried up. The two brothers were still unconscious. The staff who brought them up found that their bodies were terribly burned. Fortunately, Huo and Shui Binger held back at the last moment, otherwise, they might have died directly. When the two girls came to the VIP room, the excitement on their faces was almost gone, but in order to act like a spoiled child in front of their former husbands, the two girls still pretended to want a hug. Yun Feng was not that kind of wooden man, and naturally knew how to cherish women. He gently hugged the two girls in his arms. Not long after, the person in charge of the great fighting soul arena came here again, and brought the city lord of Hanhai City. Yun Feng simply inspected the financial statements submitted by the lord of Hanhai City and then left, rejecting the good intentions here. After all, what is there to talk about with a bunch of men? Just care about your subordinates and sympathize with the people. Besides, The Spirit Hall has not perished yet. Now the Tandu Empire and the Spirit Hall are almost like a pair of pants. Naturally, don't worry about these things. Anyway, there are many professionals to take care of them. Without staying too long, they quickly left the Hanhai Great Soul Arena. The auction is right next to the Great Soul Arena, or in other words, the two are one and the same. After spending 10 gold soul coins to buy a sign and depositing 100 gold soul coins as a guarantee, the group entered the auction hall. Because they were asked not to reveal their identities, the people here did not make any special arrangements. They just followed a soul master from a distance. Of course, they were not monitoring Yun Feng and the other two, but they were afraid that someone would bump into Yun Feng and the others. After all, Yun Feng, Kuo Wu, and Shui Binger were so beautiful, it was hard not to attract the attention of others. When they entered the venue, the auction had already started for a while. It was pitch black inside. Only the signs in their hands were flashing with a faint fluorescence, which was convenient for bidding during the auction. At this time, the auction was auctioning an antique or something like that. Yun Feng and the other two naturally had no interest. After Yun Feng and the two girls played around for a while, at this time, the next item on the auction table had been changed. The host said loudly, "Next, the item we are going to auction is a soul guide, which is most suitable for use in offshore areas. It is called the Long Yuan boat, which is known as the Conqueror of the Sea." The words of the auctioneer attracted the attention of Yun Feng and others. At this time, the etiquette lady of the auction site brought a brocade plate covered with red cloth on the auction table. There was a very strange-looking item on it. The appearance of this object was shuttle-shaped, with a dragon head at the front and a fish tail standing upright at the tail. There were 4 wings on each side that looked like fish fins. The entire thing was milky white, as if carved from jade, and was about 1 foot long from head to tail. Even though Yun Feng and the other two were sitting in the back seats, they could still feel the energy fluctuations emanating from this object. The auctioneer introduced loudly, "This soul guide is the Dragon Abyss boat. There is only one of this kind, and it is an ancient artifact. This item has a very unique effect. It requires a soul master to use soul power to activate it in order to reveal its original form. Its original form is about 12 meters long and 2 meters in diameter at the thickest point. It can accommodate 12 to 15 passengers at the same time. It can go up and down in the sea, and can sail on the sea surface or dive into the sea. It is said that it can dive to a depth of 300 meters. With it, you no longer need to be afraid of any wind and waves when sailing on the sea. Once the wind and waves are huge, you can immediately dive into the deep water. It can be said to be a life-saving treasure boat with natural advantages. This item is very suitable for viewing the scenery in the sea or for life-saving purposes. When it turns into its original form, it is transparent throughout, and you can see the scenery from any angle in the sea. It is magical and unusual. At the same time, it can also withstand the soul skill attack of a 100-year soul beast. Since most of the deep seas will have terrifying sea soul beasts, we recommend that those who bid on this item do not use it to go into the deep sea to avoid danger. After listening to the auctioneer's introduction, Yun Feng couldn't help but feel a favorable impression of this auction house. Generally speaking, in order to get a good price for their items, auction houses will praise the advantages of the items as much as possible and simply mention the disadvantages. However, this auctioneer explained the advantages and disadvantages of the Long Yuan boat very clearly. Being able to do this is enough to prove that this auction house is trustworthy. The reserve price is 10,000 gold soul coins. Dear guests, you can bid now. Chapter 442 Going Out to Sea. The auctioneer quoted the price. 10,000 gold soul coins is a considerable sum for ordinary people, but it is far from enough compared to the value of this Long Yuan boat. This Long Yuan boat can dive to a depth of 300 meters, which shows that its material is good. It is definitely a rare soul guide. However, when the host quoted the reserve price, no one in the auction room bid, and the scene suddenly became deserted. No one bid, not because the Long Yuan boat is not good, but because the function of this Long Yuan boat is really useless. Ordinary ships are enough to pass in shallow sea areas, and a very good cruise ship only needs 100 gold soul coins. The function of this Long Yuan boat is just to dive, but it is hundreds of times more expensive. Even nobles will not be extravagant to buy it. The reason is that the sea is too dangerous. Even in shallow sea areas, there may be thousand-year soul beasts. The defensive power of the Dragon Abyss boat was not enough to make people feel at ease. The host showed a trace of disappointment in his eyes. In fact, this Dragon Abyss boat was not auctioned for the first time. It had been unsold several times. Every time it was auctioned, such a deserted scene would appear. But for the reputation of the auction house, they did not dare to exaggerate the defensive power of the Dragon Abyss boat. This thing can only be used by soul masters. In today's world, who dares to offend soul masters? In fact, another reason why the Dragon Abyss boat could not be sold was also because of the location of Hanhai City. Most of the soul masters living here are sea soul masters. They have the ability to stir up waves in the sea and swim freely. In this case, what do they need this Dragon Abyss boat for? Are there any VIPs bidding? The auctioneer asked habitually, sighing in his heart. It seems that it will be unsold again today. 10,000 gold soul coins. A clear voice came from the back row. It immediately attracted the attention of the whole audience. Unfortunately, the environment in the auction house was dark, and all they could see was the raised luminous auction board. The auctioneer's eyes lit up. Okay. Mr. 366 offers 10,000 gold soul coins. Is there anyone who wants to bid more? 10,000 gold soul coins for the first time, the second time, the third time. Deal. His voice revealed an excitement and eagerness that he could not conceal. He seemed to be afraid that the bidder would go back on his word, and he quickly completed the transaction. The auction continued. One by one, the items were presented, and the auction proceeded in an orderly manner. The one who had won the Dragon Abyss boat was Feng. Yes, the Dragon Abyss boat was useless. However, it was very useful to them. First, it was easy to carry. Second, even if the defense of the Dragon Abyss boat was weak, they were still there. With the soul power of the three of them, it was enough to increase the power of the Dragon Abyss boat during the journey. In addition, Feng had some other ideas, so he decided to buy it. Feng believed in his own vision. This Dragon Abyss boat was definitely worth the money. After the auction ended, Feng went to pay the money. After receiving the items they had bought on this trip, the three of them quickly returned to the hotel without having time to visit the night view of Hanhai City. After arriving at the hotel, Feng also discussed with the two girls. If they encountered any danger, Feng would send them back immediately. The two girls also agreed to this. Their fighting ability is still good enough to deal with some 10,000-year soul beasts, but it is only limited to those ordinary 10,000-year soul beasts. If it is a 10,000-year soul beast with strong strength, it will not be able to defeat the opponent. Don't worry, husband, we will not hold you back. We have been out for a long time this time. If there is any force match or danger, you can send us back directly and let Sister Guidobuena and the others accompany you on the way back. Feng smiled and nodded. He didn't forget how dangerous the sea is. The deep-sea demon whale king in the original book, that is comparable to Emperor Tian. Although Feng didn't think his luck on this trip would be so bad. But it's better to be careful. This sentence is very right. If it's just an ordinary 10,000-year soul beast, it won't be a big threat to us. We have another way to save our lives. When we set out on the journey tomorrow, I will first try the effect of the vast sea universe cover on the sea. If it can still keep us invisible, then the effect of the Dragon Abyss boat can be maximized. After hearing Feng's words, the two girls felt their eyes brightened. If the vast sea universe cover can help the Dragon Abyss boat to move forward invisibly, then, let alone a 100,000-year soul beast, it wouldn't be a big deal. These days, they have deeply experienced the benefits of the vast sea universe cover. As long as they are protected by the vast sea bodyguard, they don't need to worry about safety issues at all. Even if someone walks by, they can't find their existence, because they have played a lot of tricks for this during this period. After the vast sea bodyguard is used, a distorted space will be formed around it. The shrouded objects or people seem to disappear out of thin air. At least so far, Yun Feng and the other two have not found a way to detect the location of the vast sea bodyguard through many experiments. As for whether a soul master stronger than them can do it, I forgot to ask Guiduina, Bibi Dong and the others about this. They came out directly at that time. Hearing Yun Feng's words, Kuo Wu and Shui Binger also said directly, "Husband, you are still smart. I wonder why you want to buy this thing. If it is just for escape, 10,000 gold soul coins are a bit too luxurious compared to this boat. As you said, if this Long Yuan boat can cooperate with the Hanhai Kaiyan Kun cover, then even if we don't rent a boat, we can easily land on the Sea God Island." Yun Feng didn't care much. At present, this is just an idea of mine. Whether it can be realized will be tried in the sea tomorrow. The boat still needs to be rented. Kuo Wu is not familiar with water. With a larger boat, we can adapt faster. If there is no other opinion, let's rest early. Kuo Wu and Shui Binger naturally know what Yun Feng means by rest. Although they are married now, they are still a little shy. After all, a night is full of words. The next morning, Yun Feng and the other two almost crossed the entire city, leaving the city from the west gate of Hanhai City, and followed the wide road specially opened on the reef outside the city, down the reef, and went straight to the dock. If you want to go out to sea from the Hanhai City dock, you need to take this road. So although it is difficult to build a road on the reef, but the Hanhai City officials still spared no effort to repair this road very well. The docks here are very large, with at least 20 docks hundreds of meters long extending into the sea, with hundreds of ships moored. This can be said to be the starting point and end point of maritime trade. It is also a huge source of income for the entire Hanhai City. Although there are many powerful soul beasts in the sea, there are also endless wealth in the sea. Living by the sea has long become an unchanging truth in Hanhai City. Even though people die in the mouths of sea soul beasts every year, this situation cannot be changed. Near the sea, most of them are sailing alkali land, which is not suitable for growing crops at all. Only the various creatures in the sea can bring benefits to Hanhai City. It is also relying on the sea that people here can exchange various resources. Chapter 443 Captain. Soon, Yun Feng and others found a sea ship that could be rented. This was a brand new sea ship that looked quite good. The hull was painted iron-colored, and only the deck was decorated with red and white paint. It was said that painting the hull iron-colored could avoid attacks from soul beasts as much as possible. The hull was 50 meters long and 20 meters wide. Although it was not large among sea ships, it was quite large. If you look closely, you can find that under the iron-gray paint on the hull, there is a thick layer of iron armor protecting the hull. The reason why this ship was chosen is because its own defense capability is quite good. Although it cost a lot of money to rent this ship, it is worth it as long as they can successfully reach the Sea God Island. As for the return, they can only rely on their own abilities. Besides, Yun Feng is now the king of a country, so naturally he will not care about this little money. Not to mention that the Seven Treasures glazed sect is now completely submissive. Bibi Dong and Qian Renxu are both his wives. Welcome to the Sea Devil. As soon as everyone boarded the ship along the deck, a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 50s came up to greet them, laughing and making a welcoming gesture. Yun Feng introduced the two women. He was the one who just went to negotiate. "This is Mr. Hader, the captain of the Sea Devil." Hader smiled gracefully. "Welcome, two beautiful ladies, and of course, the handsome gentleman. It seems that this journey will be very touching. I am very happy to serve you." As he spoke, his eyes swept over everyone, but when he passed the two stunning women, he did not stay for too long. Seeing this scene, Yun Feng's pupils shrank slightly, and the corners of his mouth curved a little, but he did not say much. With Hader's introduction, everyone knew that there were a total of 8 crew members on the Sea Devil. In addition to him as the captain, there was also a first mate and 6 crew members. The Sea Devil had a total of 3 floors, 2 floors on the deck and 1 floor below. As the party that spent money, Yun Feng and his team naturally lived on the 2 floors on the deck, and the crew lived below. The top floor has a unique view, and there are 6 rooms on the deck, which is more than enough for 8 people. The strong smell of the sea has invaded their sense of smell since the moment they boarded the ship. The whistling sea breeze brings a chill in this late autumn season. Fortunately, Yun Feng and his men are not ordinary people, and their bodies are extremely resistant, so this little cold wind is nothing to them. Weigh anchor. Set off. Everyone was present, and Captain Hader gave an order, and the sea demon officially set off. Yun Feng also copied a sea chart and gave it to him, asking him to move forward according to the specified direction. At this time, Yun Feng found the navigation chart from the Tandu Empire. Today's weather is very good, the sea is calm, and the hull of the sea demon is quite large. After raising the anchor, with the efforts of the sailors, it easily sailed away from the port and went straight into the sea. When the sea devil completely entered the sea and left the port, Captain Hader gave an order, raised the mainsail, adjusted the direction, and accelerated towards their destination. The scenery of the sea is irreplaceable by any other scenery. If you have never really been to the sea, you will never be able to feel the magnificent feeling. The endless sea, the water and the sky in the distance. At this time, the sun has risen from the east, shining on the sparkling sea. Yun Feng and others stood on the second deck of the Sea Devil without exception, looking at the charming scenery of the sea. Even Shui Binger, who has always been cold, looked at the sea with a bit of infatuation. The sea breeze blew on the body, although it was a little cold, but it seemed to blow open everyone's hearts, and the indescribable sense of pleasure made them all feel a little excited. This feeling of excitement lasted until noon. Lunch was naturally based on marine life. A few simple sea fish were boiled in water and served with some vegetables purchased from Hanhai City. Although there was nothing special about it, Yun Feng and the others still ate it with relish. In particular, Captain Hader specially added a few huge crabs for them. This kind of deliciousness that is rarely eaten in the inland made Yun Feng also exclaim with great enjoyment. Looking at such a magnificent scenery, Yun Feng was somewhat embarrassed. After explaining a few words to Shui Binger and Huo Wu, Yun Feng directly summoned the Moon Shadow Sword, and then stepped into the space crack under the gaze of the two women. Not long after, when he appeared again, Yun Feng brought Zhu Zuqing, Ning Rongnarong, Dao Wu, Zhu Guyan, and Gu Dubuina and others over. There were 5 people in total, plus the original 2 women. A total of 7 women accompanied Yun Feng. In the afternoon, the wind and waves gradually rose, and the sea demon began to fluctuate with the wind and waves. At the beginning, there was nothing, but as time went on, Ning Rongnarong, Zhu Zuqing, Dao Wu, and Huo Wu all began to react to seasickness. They ran outside and vomited directly, but with the help of Yun Feng, they recovered quickly. However, because of their appearance, the sailors on the ship widened their eyes. They didn't understand how they got on the ship at all, but after Yun Feng's explanation, they soon had to admit it. For this, Yun Feng gave them some more money. A day passed quickly, and there was endless sea water around, and there was no trace of land. When they first entered the sea trip, everyone felt that it was much more comfortable than on land. But after this day, they felt a little boring. After all, the space for activities is so small. If it weren't for Yun Feng and other sisters here, they really didn't want to stay here. At noon the next day, the sea finally returned to calm. Under the direct sunlight, the cabin was full of warmth. Several people drank some fish soup and went to rest. After all, they were too tired. Yun Feng was simply not a human. Yun Feng was standing on the deck and looking into the distance. He could only use the sun to identify the direction at sea. He roughly calculated that the direction of the sea demon was not wrong. It was approaching the Sea God Island. Hader came to Yun Feng and said respectfully, "Dear Soul Master, according to the current voyage, we will reach our destination in about 8 days. However, after about half a day's journey, we will enter the area where soul beasts are active. At that time, we will have to rely on you." Since seeing Gu Dubuina walking in the void, the captain has been more respectful to everyone. What is this? Hader has been walking outside, so he naturally knows what a soul master who can fly is. In addition to those soul masters with flying soul skills, there is only one kind of person left. That is the titled Buo whose strength has reached the extreme. Chapter 444. What an ugly trick. However, he did not think that the woman in front of him was a titled Buo. After all, titled Luos were all well-known figures. He had never heard of a female titled Buo who looked like this and was still running around. Of course, there were female titled Luos, such as the two in the spirit hall, so naturally, he would not think that the person in front of him was one. After hearing what Hader said, Yun Feng said calmly, "Captain Hader, you often sail far away, right? Generally speaking, if you encounter a powerful soul beast, how will you deal with it?" Hader smiled slightly and said, "Generally speaking, soul beasts rarely attack ships. Only a small number of soul beasts with extremely violent personalities have records of actively attacking ships. So, as long as we don't anger the soul beasts in the sea, most of the time there will be no problems. If we really encounter those particularly powerful and bad-tempered soul beasts, we can only consider ourselves unlucky. After all, no matter how strong the ship is, it can't withstand those terrifying guys. Many people die when going out to sea every year, which is equivalent to a memorial to these sea soul beasts. But you can rest assured, our ship is coated with a medicine specially used to drive away soul beasts, and soul beasts hate this smell. Generally, they won't get close." The captain of a ship that dares to go to the ocean has a nautical chart in his mind. With this nautical chart, we can generally ensure the safety of the passengers. "Oh, what nautical chart?" Yun Feng asked curiously. Hader said, "The sea chart of the distribution of powerful sea soul beasts." Soul beasts on the sea and soul beasts on land are similar in some aspects. They also have their own territories, and their territorial concept is even stronger than that of land soul beasts. So, as long as we don't enter the territories of those particularly powerful sea soul beasts, we won't anger them and cause trouble. At this point, he couldn't help but reveal a bit of pride on his face. Yun Feng looked at him thoughtfully and said, "It seems that the captain knows a lot about soul beasts." Hader's face changed slightly and said, "To beg for food on the sea, you always have to know more, so that you can live longer, don't you think so?" Yun Feng smiled, but didn't say anything else, and turned his eyes back to the sea. Time passed quickly on the sea, and soon the night fell. Tonight is a good night, and you can clearly see the stars and the moon in the sky. The beautiful scenery of the bright moon rising from the sea makes people more intoxicated. In the early morning, a layer of light morning mist filled the sea, and the crew brought up the prepared breakfast. Breakfast was black bread, fish soup, a little smoked salmon and caviar. A standard breakfast at sea. It is worth mentioning that since Yun Feng and his friends paid a high price, the caviar used was black caviar, which tasted quite delicious. Every time you bite into a plump fish roe, a touching fresh taste will flow into your mouth. With black bread, it is even more delicious. There was a lot of breakfast prepared, but it was eaten up by Yun Feng and his friends in a short time. After eating, Douluo also suggested, "Why don't we go to the deck to play and change the air?" The girls also stood up. Douluo is pregnant now, so naturally they have to follow her wishes. They left the cabin and came to the deck. As the sun rises from the east, the morning mist on the sea is gradually dissipating. Captain Hader came over with several crew members, laughed and said, "Dear guests, how is the breakfast?" Yun Feng gave a thumbs up and said, "It's quite good, especially the black caviar, it's really delicious." Hader said proudly, "Of course, if this black caviar is sold inland, it will be more valuable than gold, but the more wonderful feeling is still to come, and the time is almost up." As he spoke, Yun Feng pretended to stumble suddenly, shook his head, and muttered, "Why do I feel a little dizzy?" Hader smiled slightly and said, "It's right to feel dizzy. Who told you to eat the most just now?" Hader laughed proudly, "Even if you are all soul masters, so what? Once we are on the sea, it's our world. This time it's good. I don't know which noble family these young people are from. We emptied their soul guides. If we get rich, the captain will definitely reward us greatly. Go ahead, tie them up first and remove their limbs." After Hader said this, the first mate touched Hader. "That boss, they seem to be fine." "What?" Hader reacted instantly and looked directly in the direction of Yun Feng and the others. "What an ugly trick." Yun Feng patted the dust on his body and stood in front of Hader and the sailors again under their stunned gaze. This is impossible," Hader shouted angrily. "My chicken crow 5-drum powder is enough to make people sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. You. Yun Feng looked at him with some pity, and was too lazy to even explain. For him, who had taken fiery apricot and star anise ice grass, This was like playing with a big axe in front of Lu Ben and a big knife in front of Guangong. As for the others, it was even more impossible. Gu Dubuino was beside him and had discovered that nothing would happen after taking it. What she was operating was not a soul skill, but something like a law. Isn't this courting death? In fact, I noticed you on the first day we went out to sea. You are just a ship, but as the captain, you know too much about spirit masters. Although I don't know what methods you used to conceal your spirit power, but spirit masters are different from ordinary people after all. You crew members are agile and your strength is obviously greater than that of ordinary people. We are honored to have a crew composed entirely of spirit masters. Looking at Yun Feng's eyes that were calm but seemed deeper than the sea, Hader was angry. So what if you found out? This is the sea. Yuan lubbers will die even if you are spirit masters. Go ahead and kill them. Let them know how powerful we are. As they spoke, they no longer needed to hide. In an instant, led by Hader, the 8 people released their martial spirits at the same time. Circles of beautiful spirit rings lit up. Captain Hader had 5 spirit rings on his body. His first mate also had 4 spirit rings. The other 6 spirit masters had 2 3-ring spirits and 4 2-ring spirits. Just as Yun Feng said, these 8 people are all soul masters. Hader thought very clearly, even if these young people are all soul masters, so what? If the drug doesn't work, he can definitely take these people down by force. This is the sea, and they are all sea soul masters, which gives them an innate advantage. These people in front of him are only about 20 years old. How much can they achieve? At most, he is a 3-ring soul master. With his own level of soul king, he can easily deal with these young people. Chapter 445, Against the Will of Heaven. Looking at their arrogant appearance as they released their soul rings one by one, Yun Feng said thoughtfully, I have carefully observed these days. If it is a soul master, 3 people are enough to operate this boat normally. Extra people are useless. While he was talking, the 8 people on the other side had already rushed over. This is the sea, with abundant water attribute energy for them to mobilize. If it doesn't work, they can go deep into the sea. Of course, that is the last step. This boat is worth a lot of money. These people are still reluctant to destroy the boat unless it is worth 10,000. The women stood aside with smiles on their faces. They didn't seem to care much about what happened here. They were still talking and laughing. Yun Feng didn't know what to say when he saw this. He directly summoned his killing god domain. A strong murderous aura immediately suppressed them and made them breathless. However, this is not over yet. Yun Feng summoned his moon shadow sword, and the sword formation burst out. The soul ring on his body was particularly shining. The 6 soul rings rushed to release their brilliance. Purple, purple, black, 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 black. Yun Feng is now a level 70 soul emperor, and he only needs 1 soul ring to be promoted. You should know that Yun Feng has not used the soul bones brought by BG and ZG. He only has the soul bones of the left and right arms of the Ice and Fire Dragon King and the external soul bones of the Iron Armored Sword Dragon. When Hader and the others looked at Yun Feng's configuration, they were all shocked. What kind of monster is this against the sky? Every soul ring seemed to be laughing at Hader, but Yun Feng did not intend to let them go. He raised his sword and fell. 5 corpses were thrown out and fell straight into the sea, which was their final destination. This battle, which had no suspense, was resolved in such a short time. The other 2 crew members had already lost control of their bowels and bladders. If it were not for the influence of the aura of the sword formation, they would have been scared to the ground. Of course, they had killed people before, but the fear of killing people and being killed was completely different. Then they threw the 2 crew members who were not dead into the sea again. As sea soul masters, they would not die by soaking in the sea water. They had to wash away the filth on their bodies. Moreover, Yun Feng was not afraid of them escaping. It was difficult to encounter a ship on the sea. If they did not find floating objects as soon as possible, even a sea soul master would die on the sea. Even if there was no attack from soul beasts, the state of martial soul possession would be completely exhausted due to the consumption of soul power, and there would be only one way to die. So what they could do was to get close to the sides of the ship to give their bodies an extra leverage point. He walked slowly to Hader, who had no intention of resisting. Yun Feng smiled indifferently, staring at him with burning eyes. Under the shining of the divine light in Yun Feng's eyes, Hater could not help but feel a trance. Compared with Yun Feng, his mental power was too far behind, not to mention the existence of the purple demon eye. I think, now we can talk. As he spoke, Yun Feng directly tapped Hater's chest 5 times with his fingers. Hater felt numb all over his body, and the next moment, the soul power in his body seemed to be imprisoned by something, and the 5 soul rings on his body disappeared at the same time. Using acupuncture to seal the opponent's soul power, Hater in this state couldn't even make trouble, let alone jump into the sea. Seeing Hater's horrified face, Yun Feng's handsome face showed an elegant smile. Captain Hater, I guess you are pirates. What about the captain you mentioned just now? If you don't want to be like those 5 men. Hater's face turned pale, his legs were weak, he fell to his knees with a plop. Mercy, mercy, I'll tell you everything. Just don't kill me. Yun Feng looked down at him and said, okay, I have no other requirements. Tell me your origins and then send us safely to our destination, and I can spare your life. Hater breathed a sigh of relief and said, I say, Lord Sol Emperor, our ship belongs to the Purple Pearl Pirates. Each of us is a member of the Purple Pearl Pirates, responsible for finding fat sheep at the port, hunting them at sea, and then handing over the looted property to the group. Yun Feng nodded, knowing that this was the person in the original book, and then looked at Hater and said, tell me about the situation of the Purple Pearl Pirate ship. Where is your lair? How many people are there? And who is the leader? Hater now seemed to be willing to tell everything he knew, and he cooperated very well and answered, our Purple Pearl Pirates are located on the Purple Pearl Island, 2 days' journey from here. In the past 10 years, under the leadership of the leader, Master Purple Pearl, we have incorporated or destroyed all the small pirate groups in this sea area, forming a huge organization with more than 3,000 members. Among them, there are more than 200 soul masters. My ship, the Sea Demon, is also ranked in the group. The crew members who follow me are all my people. I was originally the leader of a pirate group, and later I was incorporated. The leader of our Purple Pearl Pirates is a level 73 soul saint, with extremely strong strength. He is about 37 or 38 years old, but he is well maintained and looks only in his 20s. He is very beautiful. The female elements noticed it, looked at each other, and said in unison, women. Yun Feng was a little amused when he saw this, and Hater naturally knew that the women behind were the women of the old man in front of him, so he didn't dare to offend him at all. Yes, it's women. However, the women also mentioned it subconsciously, and didn't say anything else, nor did they ask anything. Anyway, they have let it go now, as long as Yun Feng doesn't mess around. As an emperor, 20 or so women are still a little too few. After all, the background of the times is here. They are Yun Feng's wives and the mistresses of the Tandu Empire. Naturally, they don't want to be labeled as jealous. Yun Feng smiled and said to Hater, you continue. Hater nodded. We make a living by plundering. Collect marine taxes at sea. Yun Feng thought for a while and said, don't the officials of Hanhai City care? Hater curled his lips and said, even if they want to care, they can't. Not to mention that we have more than 200 sea soul masters. The Spirit Hall has issued a rule that land soul masters are not allowed to enter the sea easily, which makes them dare not act rashly. And we are also very sensible. We won't force people. Generally, we just rob and don't kill people. Moreover, the targets of our robbery are all nobles. How many good things can nobles have? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 446. Find a wife for my son. There are quite a few nobles in Yun Feng's harem. Ning Rong sneered after hearing this. So, you think we are fat sheep of the nobles? Are the nobles all bad people? Should they die? This Hater knew he had said the wrong thing. His face was a little distorted. After thinking about it, Yun Feng said directly, get up. I won't kill you. Send us to Poseidon Island. I am not interested in you pirates. Don't play tricks anymore. You should feel that your soul power has been completely sealed by me, and I have left a ban on you. If you move recklessly, there will only be one result, and it will be worse than death." When he said the last 4 words, his voice became obviously colder. While speaking, he flicked his wrist, and the 2 crew members who were baptized in the sea were pulled back to the deck. "This is controlling the crane and catching the dragon. Let's continue the voyage." "Although I don't know much about sea navigation, I still know the direction. You should not be too stupid. If you want to live, do as I say." "Yes, yes." Hader was as if he had been pardoned, and hurriedly took the 2 crew members away. This kind of pirate group is a disaster to the local area, and they are not good people. They actually poisoned us, which is ridiculous. They gave away their lives in vain. Yun Feng saw that the women were discussing this matter, and also came to their middle. Looking at the sea in the distance, his eyes were slightly depressed. "These pirates are greedy for life and afraid of death. As long as we pay attention, there should be no problem." The sea demon continued to sail, but the originally harmonious atmosphere on the ship had completely disappeared. Standing in the control room and steering the helm, Hader's previous humble look had gradually disappeared. He was indeed afraid of death, very afraid of death. Everything he did just now was driven by instinct and subconsciousness, but now that he gradually calmed down, his face was horribly ugly, and the twisted muscles on his face were throbbing like earthworms. The hands holding the rudder kept shaking, and in his heart, it was as if he was being bitten by thousands of snakes and insects, and the intense pain kept invading his heart. Under normal circumstances, in order to save his life, Hader would definitely cooperate with them and send them to the Sea God Island, but human judgment could not guess everything after all. Yun Feng did not have the ability to predict the future. He had read novels a long time ago, so it was normal that he could not remember some details. So one thing he did not know was that among the 5 crew members who were killed by the hack, the crew member who died in the first round with the first mate was Hader's biological son and only son. Hader narrowed his eyes slightly. His son could be said to be his only hope. At his age, it was almost impossible to have children again. Everything he had done over the years was mostly for his son's savings. He had already thought about it. When he saved more money, he would drive the sea demon to the other side of the sea and grab a wife for his son to spend his old age. However, what happened today completely destroyed his plan. He no longer had a son, let alone a future. "If you kill my son, I will let you be buried with my son." At this moment, Hader's eyes were full of hysterical madness. Looking at the boundless sea, Hader's pupils were shrinking. There was one sentence he did not like to Yun Feng. In his mind, there was indeed a sea map of the distribution of sea soul beasts, and in this sea map, there was an absolute restricted area. Just ahead, another day of sailing passed. Due to the small number of crew members, they could only prepare food by themselves. However, with the presence of Yun Feng, the chef, the women ate very happily. Hader and the remaining 2 crew members behaved very honestly. They had been paying close attention to the voyage. Basically, there was no mistake in the direction. They were moving forward according to the map drawn by the Tandu Empire. Therefore, at night, he gradually felt at ease. "There are still 7 days. We can reach the destination of this trip, Poseidon Island. What kind of existence is it? Without really arriving there, I am afraid no one can know." As the night deepened, Yun Feng and Gu Dubuin were in charge of keeping watch, leaning against the side of the ship. The stars and the moon were dim tonight, and even his mental power could hardly reach far in this vast and boundless sea. But Yun Feng liked the feeling of the sea breeze blowing, and felt the slightly salty sea breeze in the faint chill, which was indescribably comfortable. There was an oil lamp on in the control room. Usually, the first mate should come to control the ship at this time, but now that the first mate was gone, Hader did not rest. Yun Feng stood on the side of the ship and could just see him in the control room. Hader was steering the ship. He stared blankly at the darkness outside, wondering what he was thinking. Turning around and looking at the darkness in the distance again, Yun Feng suddenly felt a little cold on his body. With his strength, this was the first time he had this feeling, and the coldness did not seem to come from the body, but from the inside. Gu Dubuin looked at Yun Feng at this moment with a smile on her face. "You finally noticed it?" Hearing Gu Dubuin's voice, Yun Feng couldn't help but understand that he was careless, but Yun Feng was not worried about this matter. After all, there was the Soul Beast Master around him, and his strength was not weak. Don't be afraid of such things at all. But Hater's behavior made him very unhappy. Yeah, I noticed it. Do whatever you want to do. I'm here. Looking at Gu Duoyin's beautiful face, Yun Feng felt a taste of peace for the first time. He seemed like a little woman, and he actually saw pampering in Gu Duoyin's eyes. He must be crazy. He was a 7-foot tall man, and it didn't matter if he played some tricks. But now he was still a little uncomfortable. He nodded directly. He strode towards the direction of the control room. Captain Hater. Yun Feng knocked on the door of the control room. Hater opened the door and said respectfully, "Lord Soul Emperor, do you have any instructions?" Yun Feng smiled and said, "Is our course correct?" Hater nodded. "Of course not. I sailed completely according to the map you gave me. This sea area is called the Demon Whale Sea Area, which is the deepest place nearby. It is said that there is a trench as deep as 1,000 meters under the water surface. So if a flying soul master looks from the sky, the sea here is the darkest place." Demon Whale Sea Area? Why is it called this? Yun Feng smiled and asked with confusion. Hater said, "Because, in the trench below this sea area, there lives a demon whale, so it has this name." Yun Feng was still laughing. "Demon whale?" Hater nodded and said, "Yes. The demon whale here is a sea soul beast, and it is also an extremely powerful sea soul beast, known as the Overlord of the Sea. It should be a 100,000-year-old existence, but it is lazy by nature. Generally speaking, it will only lurk on the bottom of the sea, and it only needs to open its big mouth and swallow sea creatures to survive." Chapter 447, Little Whale. Your strength is pretty good. Since you know there is a powerful sea soul beast of 100,000 years here, why don't you go around it? Yun Feng was still laughing. Hater was not a fool, so he naturally knew what Yun Feng had guessed, but he continued to act with Yun Feng. He also wanted to see what kind of expression the murderer who killed his son would show. Hater pretended to be surprised and said, "Didn't you say that we have to reach Poseidon Island as soon as possible? I didn't take a detour. Oh, by the way, there is one more thing I must tell you. The left eye of this demon whale is blind, and in the 4 seasons of the year, in spring and autumn, its head faces east, and in summer and winter, its head faces west. In this way, even if a ship passes through the demon whale sea, it only needs to sail in the direction of its blind eye. It will not offend him easily. As I said just now, he is very lazy and will not take the initiative to attack. This does not include enemies that invade his territory. It is autumn now, and there is still some time before winter. So, its head is facing east, and its blind left eye is on the north side of its body, and our sea demon is on the south side of its body." Looking at the gradually ferocious smile on Hater's face, Yun Feng also laughed, which made Hater very confused. But then Hater's eyes were filled with ironic smiles. "It's too late. We have already entered the demon whale sea. Moreover, I just released the gunpowder bombs used to blast fish from under the boat. Listen, isn't there a sound coming from here?" In this way, even if the demon whale has a good temper, it will probably be enraged. Oh, I forgot to tell you that the 100,000-year-old soul beasts in the sea are several times more terrifying than those on land. It is said that it is because this demon whale is too powerful that the sea god blinded his left eye. Sure enough, just as Hater said, several muffled sounds continued to be heard from under the sea. The originally calm sea surface began to show undulating waves. But to Hater's surprise, Yun Feng did not look very panicked at this time, and there was even no fluctuation in his eyes, which made him very puzzled and angry. "You scream, you hit me, you are all going to die." But Hater was disappointed. Yun Feng just smiled and said to him, "I won't kill you now, you just watch on this ship, let you know what despair is." After that, Yun Feng directly twisted his limbs and put him directly on the deck. The night was dark, but the quieter the sea was, he could feel the crisis that could come at any time. Yun Feng wanted to laugh. Even if Gu Duoying was not here, he just had to give up the sea demon, and the danger would be minimized. As for re-entering the sea, at most he could row over by himself with the Dragon Abyss boat, and if it didn't work, He could just fly over with the sword technique. Danger? What danger? After telling the women about these experiences, the women were not panicked. After all, Yun Feng's ability to escape was obvious to all. Just as they were chatting, the air around the sea demon twisted strangely, and violent shocks suddenly came from under their feet. The originally calm seawater was violently churning. The waves were raging. A thick water column with a diameter of 15 meters rushed up into the sky. Douluo was interested when she saw this. She glanced at Yun Feng. Seeing that Yun Feng had nothing to say, she flew up directly. A huge body like an island slowly emerged from the water. All the surrounding seawater was covered with a thick layer of blue light. At this moment, it seemed that the sky was blue, and the sea had turned into a blue sky. A low roar sounded, and a huge sound wave beat up the waves. The huge body that emerged from the sea was more than 200 meters long, and the whole body was a sapphire color. There were two huge eyes on the head, just as Hader said. The one on the left was just a black hole, blind, and each one was 3 meters in diameter. The only remaining right eye pierced the air with a cold gaze. I saw its body move slightly, and a huge tail had risen from behind, with a twisted blue light, and hit the sea surface heavily. Billions of water drops shot up into the sky. Each drop was like a sharp arrow. In the air, a strange water curtain illuminated the sky with a blue glow. This is the true power of a 100,000-year soul beast, more terrifying than a tidal Douluo. The end of angering a 100,000-year soul beast is only destruction. At this time, Hader also felt what fear is. If he does not really face it, he will never be able to experience the horror of a 100,000-year soul beast. The extremely huge demon whale below gave him a deeper feeling. The other women looked at the soul beast in front of them, and an idea suddenly popped up in their minds. The strength of this 100,000-year demon whale is definitely higher than that of Daming and Erming. It is the real overlord of the sea. It is even more powerful than Sister BG and Sister ZG. The overwhelming blue made them feel like they had entered another world. The distorted space and extremely powerful attacks all showed the power of this soul beast. Douluo seemed to be in a playful mood. Looking at the behemoth in front of her, a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Little whale, you are quite strong. Douluo's current breath was blocked by Yun Feng's breath blocker, so the deep-sea demon whale king did not feel anything wrong. But the one-eyed one seemed to be very confused as to why his attack did not destroy the ship. It was very wrong. He was sleeping well, and everyone in this sea area knew that he was resting here. Someone actually dared to drop a bomb to disturb his sweet dream. Isn't this courting death? After coming out, he saw that these people were like nothing happened and didn't seem to take him seriously, so he was immediately angry. A huge blue light with a diameter of more than 5 meters condensed at the front of his mountain-like back. The extremely terrifying blue light only condensed for a moment, and the next moment it was ejected and headed straight for the ship. The dark night sky suddenly became strange, and everyone clearly felt that although they were in the air, they seemed to be in the sea. The surrounding air showed a strange rippling state, and the invisible resistance made them seem to be immersed in the deep sea. But this sea composed of air has a stronger resistance, and it is even more irresistible. Domain. Only the power of the domain can control the entire sky on such a large scale. This is the domain of the 100,000-year-old soul beast, the deep-sea demon whale. There was no possibility of dodging or breathing, and the extremely terrifying blue light had already shot up into the sky. But the next moment, a dazzling silver light immediately blocked the blue light, as if the attack of the deep-sea demon whale king did not exist. In the sea, this 200-meter-long 100,000-year-old deep-sea demon whale once again fell into deep self-doubt. Could it be that it had not moved for too long and its strength had declined? After carefully feeling the soul power in his body, he did not feel anything. He was very puzzled. Chapter 448, Evil Beast. Yun Feng looked at the deep-sea demon whale king's eyes and exchanged glances with the women around him, enjoying the wind and waves coming from the seaside, and suddenly felt very comfortable. Yun Feng couldn't help but sigh. With the big boss here, it's easy, and you don't have to do it yourself. In fact, if the deep-sea demon whale king lets Yun Feng do it, it can't be said that he will win, but he can fight at least. Although the strength of the deep-sea demon whale is indeed huge, It also has an irreparable disadvantage, that is, its huge body. Yun Feng can fight him with that helpless fighting style, just hide in the distance and release sword energy. There are many buffs superimposed on his sword energy. It's just that the deep-sea demon whale king is not a fixed target. It is a soul beast, so it naturally knows how to run. However, the deep-sea demon whale king is now overwhelmed by anger and has no idea why his attack is ineffective. Unconvinced, it condenses a blue light again and blasts towards Yun Feng and others. The deep-sea demon whale is angry. After all, how many years have passed? For at least more than 10,000 years, no one dared to challenge its majesty. As expected, the blue light was intercepted by the silver light again. It did not cause any waves. It also had an inexplicable fear of the unknown. When a person is afraid, as long as he does not retreat, he will often release his most powerful energy. The deep-sea demon whale is no exception. Above the sea, all the light became sticky at this moment. The seawater seemed to have stopped flowing, with the huge body of the deep-sea demon whale as the center. A circle of blue light that seemed to be a solid object spread rapidly in a ring shape. In 1 second, just 1 second, this huge ring had expanded to a radius of 10 miles. The next moment, a roar that made the sea tremble. It sounded boom. This loud noise caused panic in Hanhai City, which was hundreds of miles away. This loud noise caused the 2 islands not far away to tremble. Even the islands themselves had tiny cracks. In a radius of 10 miles, the sea was surging, and the seawater rushed into the sky hundreds of meters high. It condensed into a crystal blue and exploded in an instant. If there were an army here, then this attack alone would be enough to cause more than 10,000 casualties. If there was a mountain here, it would be a landslide. This is the sea, so that tsunami rushed to the sky. Under the control of the huge energy of the deep-sea demon whale, these sea waters were no different from heavy hammers. The huge waves falling from the sky were both physical attacks and energy attacks. They kept hitting the ship not far away. Under its gaze, the ship was finally destroyed. But the people on it were fine. Yun Feng had already brought everyone to the sky on his sword. Seeing that Yun Feng and the others were fine, its body stopped, and its one-eyed eye looked up at the sky again. Its huge body twisted a little uneasily, and the twisted fluctuations in the air appeared again, releasing its own sea domain again. Seeing this, Guiduina didn't want to play anymore. When she was about to make a serious move, she felt a divine fluctuation, which made her suppress her impulse. Yun Feng's body, a blue three-dimensional triangle, enveloped the bodies of Yun Feng and his group. This blue triangle was particularly dazzling in the air. For some reason, after seeing the appearance of this triangle, the deep-sea demon whale, with its powerful strength, actually quieted down. In its single eye, a light of incomparable hatred was ejected, and in that hateful look, there was also a hint of timidity. The blue light in the air suddenly became stronger, and a blue light was ejected from the tip above the blue triangle. The blue light instantly magnified in the air, and in just a blink of an eye, it had transformed into a huge phantom as high as 100 meters. The phantom was very blurry, and only a human figure could be vaguely distinguished. Looking at the sky through the blue phantom, the originally dark sky became clear, and the light of every star could be seen. Evil beast! An old and deep voice sounded from the sky. It was a voice that could not be distinguished from the direction at all, as if it was a pressure from the sky. The distorted sea domain in the air had disappeared silently when the huge blue phantom appeared, turning into a wisp of blue light and merging into the phantom. It looked a bit more substantial. Woo! A low humming sound came out of the mouth of the deep-sea demon whale. When its huge body saw the huge phantom, it couldn't help but slowly retreat. The sea that had been stirred up by it before suddenly calmed down. It was as calm as a mirror, without a single wave. Have you forgotten the lesson from 20,000 years ago? Are you going to blind your other eye? The old voice sounded again. Although the air seemed transparent, the deep-sea demon whale felt an incomparable huge pressure. The pressure did not come from the air, but from the sea. The seawater that was originally under its control suddenly became the most terrifying cage, tightly locking its body. Woo! The deep-sea demon whale roared again unwillingly. On its huge body, Blue light began to appear with spots of spots. These spots were like fish scales mixed with skin bulges. The body of the deep-sea demon whale was also changing rapidly. What? Do you think that you can offend my dignity just because you have completed the process of transformation into a dragon and broken through the limit of 100,000 years? The huge blue shadow shook slightly, and with his shaking, even the entire sea shook with it. The huge twisting and squeezing feeling made the deep-sea demon whale roar in pain, and the hatred in its single eye faded rapidly, leaving only fear. Considering your years of cultivation, I will spare your life again. Get out. The old voice was full of unquestionable majesty. The originally solid sea also regained its vitality. The huge body of the deep-sea demon whale sank almost immediately, and the humming from its mouth was full of relaxation after surviving a disaster. Douluo was watching from the side, with the light in her eyes flowing, and the figure did not notice her. When the deep-sea demon whale king sank, Douluo put one of her marks on the body of the deep-sea demon whale king, and Feng did the same. The sea really became calm. The huge body of the deep-sea demon whale completely disappeared, leaving only the huge phantom in the air and the blue triangle that rose to the chest of the phantom. It's been 20,000 years. I hope this choice will not disappoint me. I didn't expect that guy to actually complete the process of turning into a dragon after 20,000 years. Unfortunately, my strength. The sighing voice only sounded partially in the air, more like talking to himself. The phantom suddenly converged and turned into the tail flame of the blue triangle, driving the main body to fly out and fall into the distant sea. Feng and Douluo looked at each other. They found that the huge phantom just now seemed to have not noticed them, or it was deliberately said for Feng to hear. It was as if he was showing off something. Feng and the girls didn't know what to say. They had never seen such a pretentious person. Chapter 449. Where are you from? Are you a spy? When Douluo returned to Feng, she also stood in the sky. What do you think? Feng smiled and then answered. What else can I think? Since I'm here, I have to go and see it. Besides, I'm very interested in this kind of divine power. After hearing this, Douluo said directly, you can take a look, but don't just become a god casually. You won't get anywhere if you follow the path others have taken. Feng nodded. Of course, I still understand this principle, and I'm not interested in copying others. After hearing Feng's answer, Douluo's eyes flashed with a hint of happiness. After all, this is the person she chose, and it is also the key to whether their clan can break the curse. Douluo at this time is not as stupid as the two subsequent parts. She met Feng in advance and didn't start her love brain, so many things were not like in the future. After the conversation, Feng also summoned the soul guide he bought at the auction from his ring and floated on the sea, according to the geomancy map, moved towards the destination. 5 days later, Feng and his party also encountered a ship. After seeing the ship, Feng and his party looked at each other and said hello to the people on the ship. Then they boarded the ship and learned the destination of this trip on the ship. That is Purple Pearl Island. The party followed the young man directly to the island and took a short rest in a wooden house. Looking at the young man who led the way, Feng asked directly, is this Purple Pearl Island? Jixian nodded. Do you know Purple Pearl? Jixian was the young man who asked them to board the ship before. Yeah. However, seeing that Feng was unscathed, he immediately understood that it might be someone who had hit a wall, so they let them know the news. After hearing Feng's words, Jixian slowly straightened up, and his eyes looking at Feng became a little weird. So, you should be a noble? The people of Purple Pearl only rob nobles, and fishermen only need to pay a little ocean tax. Feng smiled and said, just as you said, pirates are not all bad people. Are nobles all bad people? Jixian was stunned for a moment, looking at Feng, but he didn't know how to answer him. Feng turned and looked at the sea. In this world, only the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. The difference between good people and bad people is whether they can keep their original intentions. Tell me about the situation here, okay? Jixian stopped cleaning up and walked behind Feng. For some reason, He suddenly felt that this man had a special charm, a charm that makes people surrender. Every word he said seemed to be filled with a special rhythm. Maybe you are right. There are good people among the nobles. Purple Pearl has been robbing the rich to help the poor for many years. While maintaining their own survival, most of the property they robbed was donated to some fishing villages in difficult circumstances on the coast. This is why I stayed. I am the only doctor in the Purple Pearl Pirates. Yun Feng smiled and didn't say much. He pushed open the door of the wooden house. At this time, 5 or 6 people came outside the wooden house. These people looked tall and their clothes were decorated with purple. Their expressions were a bit ferocious, and 2 of them had blood on their bodies. "Boy, who are you? Where is Dr. Jixiang?" Soon, they came closer. A tall and strong man glared at Yun Feng fiercely and looked him up and down. Because Yun Feng had used the vast sea universe cover to hide the figures of the women when he boarded the ship, they only saw Yun Feng alone. The wooden house he lived in was not far from the sea, and there was only one wooden house like his. In front was the beach and behind was a large forest. However, it was late autumn and the green in the woods had gradually faded. Looking at the people in front of him, Yun Feng didn't care about anything. But before Yun Feng could speak, although he was now wearing a patched coarse cloth and his handsome face was covered by the beard he had grown these days, his noble and elegant temperament could not be concealed. The tall pirate looked at Yun Feng carefully and snorted. "Where are you from, kid? Are you a spy?" As he spoke, he had already reached out and grabbed Yun Feng's collar. At this moment, a cold voice sounded. "If you want me to save your companion, stop it." The tall pirate was obviously quite powerful. His big hand stopped right in front of Yun Feng's chest. After hearing the source of the voice, he looked directly behind Yun Feng. Jixiang was slightly shorter than Yun Feng, with broad shoulders. He glanced at the pirates coldly and said calmly, "Send the injured in." The 2 injured pirates were placed on a large bed. One of the 2 had a wound on the chest and the other on the thigh. They were both superficial injuries, but very serious, especially the one with the injured thigh, whose aorta was cut off. If it weren't for the rope tied tightly around his thigh, he would have died of excessive blood loss. The other pirate's injury looked more terrible, with a dagger stuck in his right chest, but fortunately, it was not a penetrating wound. Jixiang simply washed his hands, and first walked to the pirate with the injured thigh, pulled out a wooden box from under the bed, and opened it. Then he took out a cloth roll from the cabinet, opened the cloth roll, and found a row of various silver needles inside. His fingers were very long and stable. He pierced the pirate's leg with 7 needles in a row. Yun Feng could see that Jixiang was sealing the pirate's blood vessels. Although he didn't know how to recognize acupuncture points, the blood vessels he chose were extremely correct. After completing this, he carefully untied the rope that tightly tied the pirate's thigh. With a puff, a stream of blood suddenly spurted out of the wound, and 3 of the 7 silver needles that Jixiang inserted bounced out. Jixiang's face changed. He knew that this person had been tied up for too long and his blood pressure was too high, which was why this happened. Just when he was about to tie the rope again and seal the veins with a silver needle, a slender hand reached out. He felt a flash in front of his eyes, and the hand seemed to tap the pirate's thigh a few times. The blood that was rushing before stopped flowing immediately. Jixiang's eyes lit up, and he turned his head to look at Yun, who smiled and nodded to him. Jixiang's treatment opened Yun's eyes. He used a small needle as thin as a hair to suture the pirate's severed aorta, and then sutured the muscles and epidermis. Not only was the movement extremely fast, but each needle was extremely accurate. It can definitely be described as a magical skill. Yun could see that the small needle was Jixiang's martial spirit, but he didn't have a single soul power. Innate 0 soul power, the most useless of useless. No matter what kind of martial spirit it is, a person who is born without a single soul power can never improve his soul power through practice. However, Jixiang's medical skills were the best Yun Feng had ever seen since he came to this world. The treatment process of another pirate was even more eye-opening for Yun Feng. Jixiang performed a thoracotomy right in front of him. You have to know that this was in the ancient background. Yun Feng had seen such a delicate technique in his previous life. Even those modern medical practice videos on the internet were not as good as the young man in front of him. He sutured the damaged lung. The whole process took nearly an hour. When everything was done, Jixiang showed a look of satisfaction. It seemed that treating people was his greatest joy. Chapter 450, Recruiting a Disciple. Several pirates who were very fierce before stood aside, not even daring to breathe, and looked at Jixiang and Yunfeng with a little more respect, especially the tall pirate who was about to attack Yunfeng just now. Now his face was full of gratitude. After the operation was completed, Jixiang stood up and said to the other pirates, "You can take the one with the injured leg away, and the other one will stay here for a while. He has undergone a thoracotomy and is prone to infection. He needs to take some medicine." His operation was much easier today because of Yunfeng's presence. Yunfeng's acupuncture made it unnecessary for him to seal the blood vessels of the injured with silver needles, saving a lot of energy and time. "Jixiang, doctor, thank you for saving my brother." The tall pirate knelt on the ground with a plop, and kowtowed to Jixiang 3 times. It turned out that the one who was stabbed in the right chest was his own brother. Jixiang was not polite. "If you want to thank me, then bring me some medicine next time you come back." Sure. The tall pirate stood up and looked at Yunfeng again without the fierceness before. "Brother, I'm sorry for what happened before. My brother was injured and I was anxious. I'll treat you to a drink when I have a chance." Yunfeng was stunned for a moment. Hader and his men didn't leave a good impression on him, but the tall pirate in front of him looked very cheerful under his ferocious appearance. He was generalizing. "I never thought about leaving this place. With your medical skills, you shouldn't be buried in such a place." They all left. Jixiang cleaned the room silently and said to Yunfeng lightly, "You can see that they are pirates, but pirates are also people, and not all of them are bad people. This is why I am willing to stay here." Yunfeng didn't want to get involved with the people here, but now after looking at this young man, he felt a little fun in his heart. "I can probably understand your idea now." Thinking back to the past, there were also such people in the mountains, not for money or profit, but just for the persistence in their hearts. Unknown, but great. Yunfeng turned around and looked at Jixiang closely. He did not continue the previous topic, but asked him, "Are you willing to learn the method of sealing the blood vessels from me?" Jixiang was stunned for a moment, and his calm eyes suddenly became dim. "I can't learn it. Your method requires soul power. If I have soul power, I can seal the blood vessels even with my needles." Yunfeng smiled slightly and said something that made Jixiang no longer indifferent. "What if I can make you have soul power?" What did you say?" Jixiang stared at Yunfeng in shock. Even if his mentality was calm, in fact, he was only a 17-year-old boy. From childhood to adulthood, he didn't know how much pain and grievance he had suffered because of his innate zero soul power. How much he longed to have soul power. Although he had medical skills that ordinary people could not achieve, he knew very well that if he could have soul power, then his medical skills would definitely break through again. What's more, being able to have soul power was his dream since childhood. Yunfeng said calmly, "I have a special method that will make you a soul master." Although Jixiang was much more mature than his peers, he couldn't suppress his excitement after hearing Yunfeng's words. His calm eyes were already full of desire. Jixiang was stunned for a moment. Yunfeng's words were very direct. He could not see any purpose in Yunfeng's clear eyes. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "If you can really make me a soul master, I am willing. However, I am already 17 years old. Can I really become a soul master?" In any case, this may be the only chance in his life to become a soul master. Yunfeng smiled calmly. "I am 80% sure. Are you willing to try?" Jixiang took a deep breath and knelt down in front of Yunfeng with a plop. "Thank you, benefactor." He couldn't give up this opportunity. If he gave up this opportunity, he was afraid that he would regret it for the rest of his life. Yunfeng calmly accepted Jixiang's kneeling and helped him up from the ground. "You are indeed a little old, but as long as you are willing to work hard, you will achieve something in the future. Eat this." He reached into the Ruai treasure bag and when he came out, he had taken out a golden ginseng and handed it to Jixiang. As a doctor, Jixiang naturally recognized what it was and couldn't help but exclaimed in a low voice, 10,000 years old ginseng king? Yes, just eat it directly, it's no big deal. Yunfeng was not exaggerating. The current ice and fire yin-yang eyes were with yin. Almost all of these medicines and immortal herbs were directly produced by Yunfeng. and they would not affect the function. So, this thing can be said to be as much as he wants, as long as he is willing. The main thing is that when Jixiang just saved people, that expression made Yun Feng a little interested. At this moment, Jixiang no longer doubted Yun Feng's words. How could anyone take out the 10,000 years old ginseng king easily? This is a priceless treasure. And in Yun Feng's eyes, the value of the 10,000 years old ginseng king is limited. At least it is of no use to him. Compared with the crystal blood dragon ginseng and the 10,000-year 9-grade ginseng king, the value of this 10,000-year ginseng king is far less, but for Jixiang now, it is just right. Jixiang ate it very carefully, piercing the skin of the 10,000-year ginseng king with his fingernails, and then immediately put his mouth up and sucked gently. Soon, the body of the 10,000-year ginseng king shrank. The essence inside turned into juice and flowed into his stomach. Jixiang did not throw away the remaining ginseng skin. Instead, he carefully put it in his arms. Even if most of the essence was lost, it could still be refined into some good medicine. Sit down. Yun Feng pressed Jixiang's shoulders. Although the 10,000-year ginseng king was not a fairy product, it was not something that ordinary people could absorb. As the saying goes, the weak cannot be supplemented. Ordinary people who eat this thing will only die from excessive supplementation and blood collapse throughout the body. Of course, Jixiang would never think that Yun Feng was here to plot against him. Who would be crazy enough to use such a priceless treasure to plot against him? A person who only knows some medical skills. In just a short time from standing to sitting down, Jixiang's face had turned red from normal, which shows how terrible the effect of the 10,000 years ginseng king is. Seeing this, Yun Feng directly transmitted the soul power in his body through Jixiang's shoulders, directly helping Jixiang to dissolve this huge medicinal power. Jixiang only felt a cool air flow from the back into his body, and the extreme heat brought by the 10,000 years ginseng king was immediately relieved. Under the guidance of Yun Feng's soul power, the effect of the 10,000 years ginseng king was completely absorbed and operated along with the operation of soul power. Yun Feng's help to Jixiang in practicing at this time is not just as simple as letting him absorb the medicinal power. He has two purposes. The first is to absorb the medicinal power and strengthen Jixiang's foundation. The second is to use the medicinal power to help Jixiang directly open up the 8 extraordinary meridians, so that his disadvantages of late practice will be reduced to the greatest extent. Jixiang studied medicine. When he felt the first meridian in his body open up, he already understood what it Yun Feng meant. Even with the help of the effect of the 10,000 years ginseng king, it would take a huge amount of soul power to open up the meridians for others. I feel extremely grateful in my heart. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.